I'd like to make a comment or a clarification on when we do these R1s. Must they always be done in the beginning of the meeting, or could they be done at a different time frame? I understand it's Employee of the Month, so it's not Employee of the Quarter. But I'm just concerned that we're always asking about efficiency. I remember being here one time, and I believe it was Public Health did it virtual. That way, staff did not have to drive here and all of that. It sounded like it was a smoother way to perhaps get through it. I'm all for gratitude. I'm all for acknowledgement. I'm all for honoring people. I'm just asking for clarification on this process of R1 resolutions and picking people. Has that been the way it's always been done, or is there some flexibility on that? And again, I don't know if the staff are on the clock coming here for that. People have questions like that. So that's just my clarification, kind of wondering what is this process all about. Some people have said, Lori, I think they're really using this Employee of the Month or acknowledgement to either groom people to take over or be introduced along the way. I don't know. I'm not a part of the county, never worked for a county. So is anyone able to kind of clarify this process, and is it going to be like this throughout the rest of the year? And what happens at night meetings? Same thing?
I will speak to this, so thank you, Lori.
Yep.
I personally feel it's nice to bring people together and let them get recognized with their family, let them get recognized with their team. I think that's an important part of doing their job, and I think that empowers them to do an even better job. So I for one, am quite pleased with the process. So with that, we will now move to Supervisor Body, you want to do something? You. After you do. Okay. So I'm just going to bring R2, and we're going to elect a chairman and a vice chair for 2022. And I'm going to open it to public comment first, but until then, Supervisor Baugh has something for me.
So, Chairman Chimenti, I anticipate that you'll probably end up with a few comments to make of your own, but on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we'd like to recognize you for your service. And I just have to tell you, it was one heck of a year, and I changed that word just to clean it up a little bit there. But I don't think anyone could have navigated it better than you did. The things that I really appreciate about you is regardless of decisions that we end up making as a board, you did this entire year with respect and honor, and especially my favorite part is you always stated clearly and transparently your position and the reason for your vote. Sir, that's exactly what a chairman is supposed to do. As a matter of fact, it's exactly what an elected official is supposed to do. So this says Shasta County Board of Supervisors, Certificate of Recognition. Joe Chimenti, Supervisor, Shasta County, is hereby recognized in appreciation for your service as the 2021 Chairman of the Board, presented on the 4th day of January 2022. And I will stand up and shake your hand and just tell you, sir, thank you.
And I will very briefly say this has been the most challenging thing I've done in my professional life. And I've been managing people since the 80s. But I am very proud. Despite the volatility and the things that went on, I am very proud to serve this community. And I plan on continuing to serve this community for another year here. And then I'll continue to serve the community as I did before I stepped up here as a person who's active in the community. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you for allowing me this opportunity to be the chair. I know I went in some directions that made people scratch their heads, but that's just the way it works sometimes. So thank you. Thank you all. So with that,
Chairman, I'm going to assume that other board members would like to weigh in on that. Supervisor Rickard, we'll start on that end and move down, if that's okay.
I just want to thank you, Joe. It's been a lot of fun having you be chair this last year. I appreciate all the conversations we've had and trying to move this county forward and accomplish some objectives that we set forth. And I appreciate your leadership. And I think it's a well-deserved year that you'll be able to step back and not
be the chair
and not lose any more hair.
I can't lose any more hair. Thank you.
Supervisor Moty.
Yeah. Joe, usually the chair gets to be, it's a lot of extra work. People don't know it, but it's also a time to kind of enjoy the work and enjoy the position and stuff. And certainly, unfortunately, with the pandemic and everything that's been going on, probably not that kind of year that you wish it could have been. But I will echo Mary's comments and Les's as well, that you stepped up and did what you needed to do to get us through a really tough year. I think you tried to do all that you could to keep us on track and keep our community together. And I'm very appreciative of that effort. And thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much.
Supervisor Jones.
Yeah, Joe, I too appreciate you being very respectful. This isn't an easy job, and this year was probably the toughest time to be chair, and you were very respectful through the process. And, you know, we didn't always agree eye to eye, and you broke up a few fights between me and other members. I appreciate that. But you were always you were always very respectful of the job and of the role of chair. I think you did a very good job, and appreciate what you've done. Thank you,
sir.
Back to you.
Okay. All right. With that, we're going to move to the election of a chair. So someone else gets the hot seat.
Did you want to take public comments?
And a vice chairman. So I don't have any cards for this, but anybody who wants to come up and speak on this, please, sir, come on up. You have 3 minutes.
So I also want to commend Joe. He took a lot of heat during his year, and he did perform very professionally. And I recognize that, and I think a lot of people do. So you're in a tough spot, absolutely. And you did well. We're all human, right? We all make mistakes. Yeah, all of us, including me. But you did great. So my comment on the chair that's coming up, which we'll find out shortly, this is going to be a more challenging year, extremely challenging year. Last year was a cakewalk. So with that in mind, these new laws that have been put in place to allow board meetings to go virtual when there is a state of emergency in place and social distancing is required, yes, we are paying attention to those laws that are in place now. So I really hope the new chair doesn't pull any fast ones. We expect our board to be here in person and not to look up at the screen. So I hope this coming up year, the new chair continues these open chamber board meetings, because that's what the public would like. So thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else who would like to speak on this? Seeing that I do.
Yep. This is Lori. I would like to also thank you for your time served. I'm sure no one in their worst nightmare would say, oh, I would love to do this job. Love it. It'd be the best thing ever. I would. I go home sometimes, I go, there's no way you could pay him enough for all of the stress and everything that was happening, the confusion, the corruption, the fraud, the lies, well, I'm not going to name the person here that was completely attacking everyone. I don't know if he lives in this town anymore, but I mean, that was completely shocking to all of us that value freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. I'm hoping if there's any more waves, variants, strains, whatever is going to be put out there, that we don't have to pull these chairs out again, that we don't have to be locked out, that we can have our posters back. This is our chamber. This is our room. And anybody up here in this position, you are working for us and representing us, not the deep state and other personal interests. So this is why the recall happened this year. This is why there's a recall rally tomorrow, Wednesday, 11:30 to 12:30. This is why, when there's a long-standing pattern. So to whomever you select, I'm sure you're looking to see who's not interested in this or who might be more ill than you know about, or you do know about it and we don't know about it because of the continual vaccinations and boosters. That's something to definitely factor in if someone can maintain and have the tenacity and stamina to do what's required. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else who'd like to speak on this matter?
Hello. Well, I've never been here when you guys have elected a chair or anything, but I do want to ask a question as far as with the recall that's in effect, if that would affect how people are being brought up or elected to this position. And I just want to throw my 2 cents in. Moty, you should not be sitting for either of them or nominated for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to speak on this? Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion.
Chair, I would like to nominate Vice Chair Baugh to be chair for this next year.
Okay, we have a motion from Supervisor Jones. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And Stephanie, I'll ask for a roll call vote because this is going to be controversial.
Not a problem. Supervisor Clemente?
No.
Supervisor Moty?
No.
Supervisor Rickert?
No.
Supervisor Jones?
Yes.
And Supervisor Baugh?
Yes.
So the motion fails. Do I have another motion?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Supervisor Moty as chair.
I will second that nomination.
Okay.
Do we have any further discussion? Then I'll once again ask for a roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Clemente?
Yes.
Supervisor Moty?
Yes.
Supervisor Rickert?
Yes.
Supervisor Jones?
No.
And Supervisor Baugh?
No.
Then the motion passes. Supervisor Moty is the chair.
Listen to the people.
Now we have to do a vice chair, correct? Or do I step out of the way and let the chair do the vice chair?
You're still conducting.
Yes, I think you can still say where we are while we complete the process for selecting the vice chair.
Okay. Do I have a nomination for the vice
I'll
chair?
nominate Supervisor Rickett for vice chair.
I will second that. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Clemente?
Yes.
Supervisor Moty?
Yes.
Supervisor Rickert?
Yes.
Supervisor Jones?
No.
And Supervisor Baugh?
No.
So that passes. So Supervisor Moty is chair and Supervisor Rickert is vice chair. And where am I going?
I'd like to stay here.
Okay, well, I can accommodate that.
I guess, but I probably need to.
I don't like moving anyway, so this
The vice chair should be next to the chair.
I'd love to stay here.
vice chair should be next to the chair.
I know. Move all my stuff, Joe.
I'm going to be closer to Matt now. You can catch up on so many things.
Leave him there. I just have more room over there. Get my purse.
The staff will take care of that.
Okay, we will continue on. Next item is our consent calendar. We're going to do this a little bit different than we've done in the past. We're going to bifurcate the process in order to, as someone even mentioned this morning, make sure that we save tax dollars with our staff, as well as for the public that comes to the meetings to have a business item heard and wishes to speak on an item on the regular calendar or even the consent calendar. So what we will do is we will have a 45-minute running clock for public comment to start with. Then we will take care of our business meeting, and then we'll move back and finish with the rest of our public comment.
So just a comment as we accommodate open comment time. There is no agreement among this board to limit public comment, and that cannot be done at random by the chairman.
Well,
It's not included as part of our board conduct.
Well, actually, it's not true that first of all, I'm not limiting public comment. I'm just bifurcating it so that we have a portion of public comment, and then we will take care of business and move forward on the rest of that. And I've already had, is that appropriate, Mr. Cruz?
Members of the board, the agenda provides for a public comment period open time, which is, as I understand, is going to occur at this point, or at least begin at this point, with the ad for a 45-minute time period. And then if there's additional time, then that can occur for non-agenda items that can occur at the end of the meeting. It is consistent with the Brown Act. The Brown Act authorizes this sort of information, and the Brown Act rules are incorporated into the board's rules as well. The chair, under the existing board rules, does have the discretion to control the meeting and preserve order and decorum. Of course, that is all subject to change by a majority vote of the board if it were so inclined to do so.
So, and then just to clarify with legal counsel, this meeting took place in the advance of this meeting, or a question proposed to you from the assumed Chairman Moty?
No, I've had.
I've asked that of legal counsel. Thank you.
I don't care what you have. I'm just.
I've asked that of legal counsel. Thank you.
Yeah.
I attended a meeting that was at the request of Mr. Pontus and Mr. Moty.
So yes, prearranged. Thank you. So now it's your turn to talk.
Yeah, well, it was not prearranged. It was discussed to determine what was appropriate and what is allowed.
Isn't that a meeting outside of the public?
You know, the 45 minutes has started, so we will just continue on. Any interruptions of that 45 minutes will be absorbed during that time. So we will move on. The first speaker I have is Nolda Short.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Moty and members of the board. Nolda Short, Auditor Controller. Thank you for your time this morning. I just wanted to share that the Auditor's Office has again qualified for the Government Finance Officers Association, also known as GFOA, Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Our staff are very proud that we have received this award every year since we've enrolled in the program 7 years ago. And I would like to take a moment to read the release sent to us by the GFOA. So, Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting to the County of Shasta for its annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended 6/30/2020. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure, to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by a government and its management. And so I would like to ask my staff to stand up so that we can acknowledge the hard work of the financial reporting team, who are largely responsible for making this happen. It's a long, arduous process. It takes them months to put it all together, and a lot of coordination with all the county departments. So I'd like to thank the CAO staff, county council, and all the departments who submit information that helps us complete these tasks. So unfortunately, the agency no longer prints fancy certificates, so they send us an email, but they do send us an engraved medallion each year that's added to our plaque. And so if anybody would like to see that, we'd like to welcome them to come down to the auditor's office and take a look at that. It hangs proudly on our wall. So thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good work. Thank you.
And Nolda, thank you for bringing that forward and bringing it to the public's attention. I think this is a really important thing to make everyone aware of the excellent job you're doing in the auditor's office. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alex.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alex Bilecki, and I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'm here for 3 reasons. 1, the law doesn't seem to work in this county. The drug growers, yeah, they're doing better. The heroin coming across the border, awful lot more. Unlawful citizens, or supposed to be citizens, coming across the border. Where? Nobody knows. Comes to our county, yes, we have a few in our county. They didn't go through naturalization or anything like that. They're just sitting here, nice and pretty. Got cartel members growing dope up here, but now they're Americans, not Mexicans. and/or other Southern American countries. Here it is. Everybody in this county needs to stand up and take a look at each other, because the county here, what law do you follow? Whose law? Is murder a law? Heroin addict? Beating people down? Car theft? Where do you draw the line? I draw the line right at the border. Human trafficking, child trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, and our governor does nothing. State of Texas. Oh, I like picking on them because they all can carry a gun and they can all do their thing. Not in California. But that's the only reason why they're not scared about letting them through. The law officers there are stealing our rights. I personally don't like them doing what they're doing. But the president doesn't have the right to make that kind of a law. Same thing with the COVID, with the monochromials coming out and everything. You guys are finally getting a good look. But the fact of the matter is, the trafficking, period. And the last thing I got to say is, you better start making prisons. Because I know if someone hurts my family again, and this county hasn't provided adequate protection for the city and the county, I know where I'm going. Legally, of course. No threats. I'll just take you guys to court. Because it's real simple. Rules are rules.
Thank you, Alex. The next speaker is Margaret Hanson.
Well, I was going to speak on something different today, but I'm going to address you three amigos. The issue is this. Yeah, you can vote for whatever you want, but these little secret meetings going on and then trying to justify it, not good, okay? For one, the recall's valid. I don't care if your arrogance or whatever you think is going to, present itself and you get mad at people and you tell us that we don't know what government is. I want to know, is the government that you're talking about the rub your hand and rub your back and kind of shake hands and wink, wink, wink on the side, or is it constitutional? That's the question, because this is ridiculous, okay? You're being recalled. You shouldn't even be sitting in that chair. Sorry, that's just the way it is. But in your arrogance, and you three getting together and going, yeah, we're going to do it this way so we can run with an iron fist. Well, I'm going to tell you, we're not going away and we're not stopping. I'm not being disrespectful. I am speaking truth. And truth is one thing you guys have a problem with. So I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be the pain in your butt. Thank you.
Chair, if I may, I just want to make sure we note that there is a recall election. The outcome of that election has yet to be determined. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisors Committee. And also, there's nothing that precludes any member from this board to have a one-on-one meeting with County Council and or the CEO. So, excuse me, it's not your turn to talk.
I have a question for Supervisor Baugh. Did you meet recently with Matt Pontus about and discuss your potential chairmanship?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. I called him on the phone. Actually, I met with him as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear. And did you ever have any discussions with Supervisor Jones about who would be chair?
He called me last night and asked if I would be willing to accept the nomination, and I answered yes.
Okay. The next speaker is Robert, followed by Richard.
Good morning, Board. Happy New Year. I'm here to bring awareness to the $450,000 elephant in the room. This elephant is subversive, vengeful, corrupt, mean-spirited, and utterly perfidious. It is called many names, but this elephant is not local, not grassroots, not interested in serving the citizens of Shasta, but serving himself and nurturing the bitterness and resentment in his heart. I am referring to an elephant with several heads. First, the son of a billionaire, Reverge Anselmo, who gifted the rebel extremists with about $450,000 worth of cash. Or for those of you not up to speed on the cost details, about $50,000 more than this wasteful and reckless power grab called a recall costs us taxpayers. The other smaller head is our own Patrick Henry Jones, a useful stooge being used by Anselmo and God knows who else and what other dark money is hidden that they're trying to conceal. Then the nationalist Recall Shasta, RWB, and Shasta General Purpose Fund. These are representing themselves laughably as put out, trodden upon, abused victims of a tyrannical government and lesser local magistrates. Then we have the Papa Bears, the 3%ers, baseball cap assault and battery merchants, and a whole host of inexperienced candidates who would play 15 men on a dead man's chest. For me, I don't want Papa Bear, Mama Bear, or Baby Bear. I want steady, seasoned leadership at the helm. Like my friend and seasoned leader, Supervisor Leonard Moty, says, this election is a fight for the soul of Shasta County. This isn't about masks or the reality that is COVID-19. It isn't about bowing to Newsom, which, by the way, we never did. It is simply a naked attempt to seize the soul of a county that has so much potential, yet has not been able thus far to find moral fortitude to shake the extremist nationalist shackles that so oppressively bind us. I urge the constituents of District 2 to take a hard look at these self-referenced radical nationalists, look beyond the flag, the horses, and the running dogs, and see the bullhorn and hear bullwhips cracking. Remember Jones and Boss first, and Jones's second unauthorized invasions into the people's house, for which, incidentally, he was never punished. Remember the unhinged tirade and verbal abuse of a convicted court-ordered anger merchant as he disgracefully and with seething hatred let loose upon a 65-year-old grandma and well-respected member of our community. Remember the venomous personal attacks on the noble and good Supervisor Rickert from a bad actor who since went sailing away, and from so many others whom Joe Chimenti allowed to vomit their hatred and calumny. And from a pair of self-appointed guardians of freedom, self-referenced bullies who purport to be medical experts, but are really, in my estimation, subversive, being used by their higher-ups, much like Supervisor Jones. So constituents of District 2, vote no on the recall and yes to sanity, order, and public health. And
Thank
safety.
you, Robert. That's your time. Thank you. Next is Richard.
That's a hard comedy stand-up act to follow. But hey, you're giving Nathan the other satirists, you're giving him a run for his money, I'll tell you what. So, Sheriff, I'm still waiting for an update on the felony complaint from that I filed against Pasenko and Paisley. I have not had any updates. It's been 3 months. Zero contact from your office. Oh, I would really appreciate a written
Mr. Chairman, can I
response.
request that
This
you
is,
ask the
excuse
board-
me, you're taking up my time. Can I please finish? He is under your purview as a county officer,
He's
so
just
this
asking-
is under your jurisdiction.
He's just asking that you address us, please. He can hear you.
Okay. No, I'm going to be a man, and I'm going to look at the person I'm talking about because he's in the room. So I'd appreciate an update, Sheriff. Thank you so much. So the redacted, the Health and Human Services list that I got recently with 24 approximate redacted names, allegedly there's a court precedent for that. Whatever. Oh, we'll get those names, trust me. We'll get them. And we're going to expose the unlawfulness of their positions. There's a lot of unlawful appointments in there. We'll get them. Somehow. We'll get them. More raises for everybody. Yep, look at the agenda today. And, you know, now that you're pulling your shenanigans already, Leonard, you've been in there 5 minutes, so can we put the people that work, can we put on the card if do you have a job, yes or no? And can you please, let's put those to the front so they can do their public comment and then go pay the taxes that you guys spend so freely. So that'd be awful nice, Leonard, if as chair, you could put the workers first. Thank you. That would be really nice, Leonard. It's just amazing. Joe, are you still sitting on the chair of First 5 Shasta? Are you on the commission still? Yes. All right. You're going to get this. It's going to be in the document holder here. January 18th, they're holding a training, okay? Implicit bias training. Here's the words that are in here. Implicit bias, microaggression, racial equity, social justice, spirit murdering, cultural humility, dismantling white space. Yeah, this is a government commission, folks. First 5 is government funded. This board appoints all of the commissioners. Joe's on, Karen Ramstrom's on that commission, and they're holding basically socialist indoctrination training of adults. But when these adults are finished with this training, first 5, 0 to 5-year-old, those adults are going to be impressing this very same stuff on 0 to 5-year-olds in this county. We're 80% Caucasian, and they want to dismantle the white space. I expect you to hold a special meeting of that very commission and cancel this training. It's for you, Joe.
Steve Woodrum.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to call the next in line as well so we can speed this process up and not delay?
It's possible.
But you're not going to?
I'm going to let the speaker speak.
Okay.
I've got a few remarks about the recall election. I've been in this chamber for 2 years during the pandemic and listening to the supervisors and the public speaking. About a year and a half ago, I had a conversation with Leonard Moty, and he explained his rationale for not challenging the governor. It's illegal if the governor has the right to withdraw funding to the county if the supervisors voted to go against the pandemic mandates. Whether you think that's fair or not, that's another question. I don't have time to talk about that. But the reality is that if the board chose to defy the governor could yank about $200 million from the county. I'll repeat that, about $200 million. Let's say that's exaggerated. Let's say it's only $100 million. That's the elephant in the room that nobody really is talking about. So as we have another month of the recall election, I'd like the candidates for District 2 to start talking about this and saying, okay, we want to make this symbolic act of defiance to the governor. That's important to us. It's freedom. Well, hey, I like freedom too, but it comes with a cost. Is that symbolic act worth this economic hit to the county? Somebody needs to get up there and start talking about this, not whispering, but talking. If a candidate got up and said, yeah, Steve, I'm going to defy the governor and it's worth it and we can survive the impact, I could respect that honesty. But this is a secret. They're all talking about freedom and they're not talking about the cost that comes with it. What's going to happen if we lose? Is it going to be 200 million or 100 million, maybe 20 million? How much would we lose? Who's going to pay the hit? Would the sheriff have to lay off some deputies and release more prisoners? Would a volunteer fire department lose the funding so they couldn't buy that new fire truck? Would veterans down here not get services, adult and child protective services? Would they be cut? What would be the reality if you go down that road? I'd like to hear a candidate start talking about that. We've got another month left in the election. If you think you're qualified to sit up there and represent the public, then have the courage to start talking about these issues. Show that you know what you're talking about and you're willing to level with the public. One of the things about Mr. Moty is he hasn't leveled with the public. I don't see it that way, but that's one of his charges. Well, it sounds to me like the people that are trying to replace him, they're not leveling with the public during the election. You've got a month left. Let's see what you can do.
Thank you. Brenda Woods.
Can you please call extra people so we can line up in the proper order and work efficiently with time?
And I'll make the request again also. I'd like to ask you to call more than one name. It appears that we're purposely running out the clock, and I don't think that's what you're trying to do.
No, there should be enough time for everybody.
Would you consider it? Thank you.
Brenda Woods, please.
Yeah, I just had to push my clients down, so thank you for that. I have to go to work. I have a job. So this isn't any different than our federal government, our White House, and how people come into office. You know, our president is a senile old fart that breaks the law. His son is a crackhead, you know, and he's also a hooker, and he tries to sell crackhead art to dumb people. So this doesn't surprise me. You can break the law and then, you know, still hold an office. It's all good, though. I came here to talk about, I just lost my Head Start childcare for my 2-year-old because after 2 years of this crap, they want to mask my 2-year-old. BS. She's not going to that Head Start program anymore, and I will be there on the 10th when they start enforcing this. Now, they're not going to force them to wear the mask, but they gave me this paper to teach them or how to manipulate them into wearing a mask, which they're also going to do when I'm not in my 2-year-old's presence to keep her safe. We are not doing this. My kids are not getting vaccinated. I'm not getting vaccinated. All this stuff is a bunch of malarkey. It's time to move on. I'm over it. And then I heard, and I don't know if it's rumor or fact, that you've been offered $34 million in the CARES Act money, and the stipulation is if you don't enforce all state and federal mandates of COVID, you will not get to have this money. I am not for sale. My children are not for sale. I am not a bartering chip, and I will not comply to any of this. And I will fight this full force as much as I can. I have God on my side, and that's all I need. He's in control. I can only do what I can do today. And if you take this money, I know what's going to happen with it. It's going to go into the same programs, Darnell, Kathy Ramstrom, CPS, APS, Hill Country, all these broken programs. And I have something to say about APS. I just don't have enough time to do that today. You know, we have places for homeless people. You have a hotel sitting down on Park Marina. Why can't we turn that into a temporary residential rehabilitation center that's gated and help these people get to a place where they can live in whatever normal society you think that is? They have to be rehabilitated. What you're doing now and what you're approving is not working. And then you talk about all these other programs. Did you know when these homeless women get pregnant and their significant douchebag goes to the hospital with them, they get to sign that birth certificate whether they're the father or not without identification? Nobody identifies them. I have to pay $20,000 to adopt my children, but this douchebag could go in and sign a birth certificate and nobody cares who he is, and you wonder why kids get trafficked. That's all I have time for. Thanks.
Thank you. Dolores Lucero. And while Dolores is coming up, just a reminder that the $34 million, that is money that would be available to help out the homeless crisis and housing. So it would be perhaps beneficial to use that money.
I come up here, and by the time I get here, I'm so ticked off. I just can't believe, but I think I do believe everything I've been saying to myself that what was going to take place. I actually made a phone call this weekend on, can you tell me where's the 3-minute here? Why is it not rolling? Okay, you don't have it here? Okay, fine. But anyways, I predicted that you were going to take in charge, Moty. I really actually did. And then the next move you're going to make is to make sure you stay in office. Somehow you're going to find a way how to dictate those machines to make sure that you're going to stay in office. So we better be ready. I mean ready. Because we need to fight. We can't keep on coming to these damn meetings and take 3 minutes to be up here and yell at these people. We need to do more. We need to, you know, I take 2 hours by the time I get here, 2 hours to get ready for 3 minutes so I can tell them.
Please address it.
Don't tell me what to do. I'm tired of you dictating. You're a Hitler. Hitler. You're a part of the cartels. You're worse than the druggies out there because you are in office. You're breaking the law. You're using your position for under the, what is it called, color law? You know what that means. You're using your position to override everything, even to break the laws. So I am going to pray that I brought the Bible to basically say, I pray in the name of Jesus to rebuke these three people in office, Joe, Rickers, and Moty. I rebuke them in the name of Jesus. I pray that the Lord gives the power to the people and for us to be in control. I'm so sick of this. If SB 271 passes, I'm telling you right now, I, as a woman, I don't care what people say, but I am tired of your corruption and everything's been going on for years. I will try to run for a sheriff here. If they lower the qualifications, I will do it. I'm not afraid to take a challenge. We have to do more, and I am tired of your corruption. This is what I've been saying for a long time. If the sheriff is not willing to enforce the law, it's called Shasta, sheriffs, the good old boys. This has been going on too long, Moty. You've been in office too long. It's time for us to start thinking smarter and start fighting harder by doing things that we should be able to do. Use the law against you. You using that. They're telling us that we're bullying you. We're speaking the truth and you don't like it and you don't like to hear it. You're lucky I don't get so mad to be able to come up to you and tell you that I know some things about you because I had a talk with Linda Hartman a couple years back. So don't get me ticked off to where I'm going to spill my guts.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker is Elizabeth Walker.
Chair, if I may, I just would like to make a comment on that speaker. There has never been any indication that elections held in Shasta County were not held to the highest standards. And I think it's irresponsible to make a statement like that. When this election is over, every vote will be counted. It will be done legitimately and legally like it has always been done in Shasta County. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Regarding C2 meeting calendar, last year there were 29 regular meetings. This year there are only 25 meetings scheduled. That means that 4 meetings or a month of meetings have been dropped. In 2017, there were 37 regular meetings. So in a 5-year period, 9 meetings have been dropped. That's over 2 months of meetings. Let's go back even further. In the year 2000, there were 49 meetings. That means the board met every week with 3 weeks off for vacation. In the last 22 years, the number of board meetings has dropped by half. This year, this board will meet for less than half a year with 27 weeks off. That's a lot of vacation time. That's the equivalent of almost 7 months of not meeting with the public. And this is supposed to be a full-time job? How does that work? The supervisors are to be representatives of their constituents. It's your job to be approachable, accessible, and attentive to your electorate, not to hide from them. Slashing the number of meetings doesn't give the board sufficient time to adequately analyze the agenda items. Your job is to run interference when agenda items come down the pike that would not be good for the people of Shasta County. But how can you do that when there are a multitude of items on the agenda, some of which are lengthy and require research, and only 3 to 4 days to look into them before you vote? By having meetings weekly, the board would have fewer agenda items to consider each week, time to thoroughly investigate each of those items, and more opportunities to listen to the public. Another plus is that your meetings would end up being shorter. The way it is now, there is no way any of you can adequately review all the agenda items, which means these items are being rubber stamped. Congress pulls the same tactic in order to hide things. The items are so in-depth, they have to pass them to know what is in them, except they never know what's in them because they never take the time to go back and read them. In regards to the job of the Board of Supervisors, A. Levercon from Adult Practical Insight states, local residents often attend public meetings of the BOS to make sure business is done properly and with the interests of the community in mind, end quote. You are public servants. You can't serve the public and look out for the best interests by ramrodding agenda items through. Instead, spread these out over more meetings. Also give more people the opportunity to be heard, not only with more meeting dates, but with frequent 6 p.m. meetings. Since this is a full-time job, we, your boss, expect you to work full-time on our behalf. But if you're only going to work half a year, your salary should be cut in half as well. Be the full-time servants that we hired you to be.
I just want to clarify that I don't know if Ms. Walker knows this, but we serve, some of us attend our various boards and commissions that we're appointed to. I serve on 12 other boards and commissions. I live 80 miles from here. This gives us the opportunity to spend more time to have direct contact to meet with the public one-on-one. I attend meetings with constituents who have problems with resource management. I am busy all the time, 7 days a week.
Thank you, Supervisor Rick. Yes, we all have additional assignments that we go that are it's just not a Tuesday board meeting. We have other places we have to go. Also, as to having fewer meetings, keep in mind there was just a comment this morning, a complaint actually, that staff shouldn't be wasting their time. So having extra meetings requires staff to be here. Also, keep in mind that the cities only meet twice a month and seem to get all their work done. So it's just a case of being more efficient. The next speaker is Freedom.
Maybe perhaps call the person behind me, please. Heavenly Father, I lift up this Board of Supervisors. I ask that you put discernment on their hearts. I ask that you just give the strength back to the people, Lord, and help the ones that need help. And we just rebuke those that are trying to put sin and evil upon our community. In Jesus' name, amen. So most votes to recall were against Leonard Moty. The majority of the public has spoken and said that they don't respect him, just as he doesn't respect us, just as he doesn't put his eyes on us as we speak, just as he sleeps through the majority of the meetings.
That's a lie.
This is my time, and you already have eaten up much of the 45 minutes. Please be quiet.
I'm just telling you.
I'm telling you,
and I'm
please be quiet.
You're telling a lie.
Okay,
Calling out.
so I would like to have time added, considering he is disrespecting and talking over my time. Thank you.
Nope,
And
keep on.
shut your face, Nathan. Nobody asked you. So the people have voted and spoke, and you're not listening, and it shows, especially during this. I also don't think that we should be using Dominion machines for this next election. It should be paper ballots. After all, it is only one district. Accepting $34 million to do whatever the state and the feds say. Are you listening? Have you not been listening? We do not agree with the ridiculous mandates. We don't want their bribes to keep our spending bloated, just to be tied to what they say. We do not consent. Do not accept this money. Send it back now. Review and cut your spending. Stop raising people's pay. We need to live within our means. Let me repeat that. We do not want this bribe money. We need to live within our means. This money locks us into tyranny. We have an election in February next month. Let's put this off until next month, at least. Respect the people in their words that much. Moty, you asked, so you're saying we should just say no to $34 million we need? The answer is yes. That's what we, the people, want, and we want you to stop overspending, revisit funds being overspent in the budget, and overpaying to the positions. The $34 million will disappear into the medical BS that has been being pushed upon us. It is not okay. We do not want this. And again, the voting even for the chair should have been put off until next month after the recall has been done to decide who is going to sit in that seat. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So it's my understanding that Jones Fort, for instance, was given $32,000 in PPP loans. The Soundhouse Broadcasting and Media Company was given almost $17,000, and Mr. Clendenin was given $5,400. And those applicants, when they applied for those loans, they had to attest in their application that they would follow all the rules and regulations.
How much did you take from the PP?
I'm just asking you the question.
I'm asking you too. How much did you take?
That's my personal
So then I don't think you need to bring any other companies, businesses into this. So
no, I just want to know, you're telling us...
Or the overspending on the Health and Human Services.
Please let her,
like you let me... No, I have no respect for you, and I have nothing to say.
Please step away from the microphone.
If you
You're
can
finished.
answer,
You are finished.
if you can answer, if you
are
receive
finished.
those funds,
If you
then
don't
you
step
have the
away
right.
from the microphone.
Would you like to remove me?
Okay,
Please remove me.
We're taking a 5-minute recess.
And I hope that you.
I am not going to put up with this.
Nobody respects you or cares what you have to say.
A lot of people are going to hear what you just said.
Oh, please. Do you care what?
Quiet people, please. Hey, don't try to make another fucking meme, dude.
Oh, so I'm sorry. What happened to not allow me swearing in here? I made my point without swearing.
We're at a recess.
I'm so sorry.
We'll continue on with the public comment time. The next speaker is Jesse.
Hi. So I was going to mention a lot of different things, but unfortunately, you don't have the respect to even look at me right now. I've had very fun watching body language. And out of 5 of you, 3 have paid attention to the people speaking. You want respect? Show respect also. I'm a young person telling my elders that. That's horrible. You should be an example. I propose that you do not take any more of this money. You say that you want to help the economy in this Shasta County. Sorry if I'm shaking. I hate speaking. There are 5 really bad bills that are put on the legislators. You don't even want to listen. You don't want to admit that you're just taking money and putting it in your pocket. If you truly care about this pandemic, you need to understand, if our time is to die, we're going to die. There are druggies, there are alcoholics that have lived years when literally they should be dead. I am not immune to death. All of my family members, I have no elders in my family anymore. I've had nephews die. I've had people die in car accidents. We own a business. If we take this money, we will have to do everything that these mandates go across. Here's the mandate. COVID-19 vaccine mandate for public and private employers. We have had people come to us and say, are you mandating it? No, we're not. And I'm not going to tell you my business because I'm sorry, I don't trust you. This will kill our business. And we are a construction company here in Shasta County. Another one is mandating the vaccine for K through 12, public and private. We have no protection over our children. I have a child who was vaccine injured. I don't care if you believe me or not. You're not their mom. I am, and I saw the difference, and I work with children. I have seen the regression in them. Why can you not even look at me instead of looking at the clock over there? Please just do admit to yourselves that you have made wrong decisions. I teach my kids to take responsibility for their actions. You guys are grown adults. Take responsibility for your actions. Yeah, it might suck, but it'll be worse in the long run if you don't. The other one on here that I will mention is 12 years and up have to consent to the vaccines without parental knowledge. We won't know. We won't know if all of a sudden our children start throwing up or having seizures. We won't know why, and we won't be able to help them to know if they have a reaction. I encourage you to look at the ingredients of all the vaccines, all of them. The other one is proof of vaccination requirements for 12 years and up to enter a business. Are we really going back to World War II? And I'm sorry if you've forgotten history, but I haven't. I didn't learn it from school. I learned it from my elders.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sally.
The California Emergency Services Act in Section 8629 states that the governor must terminate a declared state of emergency at the earliest possible date. In response to a December 7th, 2021 Public Records Act request for data that Gavin Newsom used to support the need for a statewide extension of the current COVID-19 emergency declaration, the governor's office responded that they had no data and were not able to provide any information that was used to determine that California is still experiencing a state of emergency. In August of 2021, California Department of Health downgraded their activation response to an emergency from an emergency to sustainment activation. So California is no longer experiencing an emergency, and the governor has no basis for continuing his declaration. Is there any doubt that the governor is abusing his power by continuing the state of emergency? And his mandates are not laws. Laws come from the legislature. As the executive and legislative board of Shasta County, you have the authority to end the state of emergency. But if you do, you risk losing the $34 million that comes with strings attached. These strings are mandates and requirements that will last until 2026. Mr. Moty said at the last meeting in December that we desperately needed these funds. Yet he votes to raise hundreds of county employees' salaries. He also recently voted to continue using Dominion voting machines and then accepted a donation from Dominion. Mr. Moty, you have lost all credibility. Shasta County deserves better. This is why I'm voting yes for recall. Thank you.
Just for clarification, I did not receive a donation or contribution from Dominion. I received a contribution from a friend of mine who happens to work there. It's a relatively small contribution. You know, you're just using up your time, so keep laughing. So that is their 45 minutes. So the rest of the speakers will go to the end. We will move on with the consent calendar. The consent calendar is expected to be routine and non-controversial. Will be acted at one time upon the board without discussion. Are there any? I have no advance requests. Please step away, sir. Please sit down. What are you doing? Excuse me, you're not. You're interrupting the meeting. Please step away. Please go sit down. Tom, please go. Sir, please step away. You're interrupting the meeting. Please step away. And you're going to get a chance to talk. We're not finished. We're going to do it at the rest at the end. Yes, sir. Tom, please step away. You will get your time when the time is. Excuse me. Excuse me. That's not what we're doing. Do we have any? You're interrupting the meeting, Tom. Please step away. I'm going to have the deputy escort you out, sir. Please step away. Okay, so the item is the consent calendar. I don't have any advance requests to. Does anybody wish to have an item pulled from the consent calendar?
I do. I did request.
Excuse me, I'm listening to one of our supervisors. Step away, please.
Chair Moty,
Go ahead.
I did request C6, but I'd also like to pull C2 as well.
Okay, great. C2, C6. And I do have some speakers on a couple of the items. Anybody else have an item to be removed? Then I'll look for a motion from the board on the remainder of the consent calendar.
I move approval.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will be reviewing C2 and C6, and we also have requests to speak on C6 and C11. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you just missed it, but we failed to offer the opportunity to speak on the consent calendar itself.
We're going to. We have that.
On the consent calendar
Yes, sir.
itself that we just approved.
I asked.
Not just the items.
No. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Pontus, are you ready to review C2?
Mr. Moty, Chair Moty, did Supervisor Jones have a specific question on that?
Yeah, I did. Obviously,
I'm going to interrupt again. Still, we just voted on our consent calendar. Our own instructions were read by Chairman Commenti, said that everyone gets to comment. Our policy is on every item on the agenda.
And
you cannot simply move forward and not comment on consent in general. It is the opportunity for the board to do so, regardless of whether they put a card in there. Not just the items that are pulled from consent.
And I have your request speaker for you to speak when the time comes up.
Yes. So, as I understand it now, there was an individual who put in a card to speak on C11. So, yes, that opportunity should be provided before the board votes on the entire consent calendar, even if a particular item isn't pulled. But as long as the opportunity is provided for individuals who submit their speaker request forms before the board votes on the consent calendar, that would be consistent with the Brown Act.
But they don't have to actually put that request in prior to the vote. The board chair offers the opportunity to speak on any item on the consent calendar prior to taking the vote, or right after the vote if you'd like, but usually prior to taking the vote. And you do not have to put one of those cards in if you choose not to.
It is not a requirement, but the board does have the speaker request forms that are there. It's a request. And the speaker request forms do state that a failure to, while it is voluntary, if a person fails to submit it, there is the possibility that the chair may not recognize or be aware that they wish to speak. So as I understand it, the purpose of the speaker request forms are so that the chair and the board knows who wishes to speak on particular matters in order to efficiently run the meeting.
So Ruben, I'm going to challenge you legally on this.
So hold on a second, please.
I
understand. Let me check something. So, Mr. Cruz, can we undo our vote on the consent calendar and listen? How do we address that?
Yes. Well, I think, probably the easiest thing to do would be to rescind the vote on the consent calendar that did happen and then complete all of the conversations concerning.
Yes, it's the proper way. And my challenge to you, Ruben, was going to be you just have undone 16 years worth of government conduct that I've been on this board if you don't allow public comment on every item on the agenda.
Well,
so regardless of whether the card's there.
And to clarify, there is opportunity for public comment on every item on the agenda. That is true, and that is.
Ruben, you've said just the opposite in many meetings in the past, that this board needs to welcome all people who want to comment. So, and I thank Chairman Moty for the opportunity to reverse that position, and I think that'll settle it in my mind.
Let's just let it go with that.
Okay. Okay.
So,
you want me to make a motion to rescind?
Yes, please.
Our vote on the consent calendar items.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. So we're back to square one on the consent calendar. And I do have, we are pulling C2 and C6. I have a request to speak on C6. I have a request to speak on C11, which is Brenda Woods. And then I have a request to speak on the consent from Thomas Hildebrand. So Ben is not here. So Mr. Hildebrand, your chance to speak to the consent calendar.
Yeah, Thomas Hildebrand. I live in Mary's district. This is government, public people. That's the basis of being American. It's been eroded. I sat here for 12 years or so, and I see it eroded.
Are you addressing an item on the consent calendar, sir?
The whole thing, yeah, okay. On raising fees, number 4, all of a sudden, public facility fees, so you're going to raise fees. That's been the problem here. How long? Fees are too high, and now you raise them again. And then C5 about dual dwellings and all this crap. I've got a piece of property, and I've been going for years, and nothing's happened. I tried to get hold of Mary, and she gave me a phone number. I called, and nothing happens. But she's so busy on other commissions that she can't come here once a week and talk. We should go down these consent calendars one at a time. There's a lot of public input, and you guys go ahead and get on your committees and pass it. And also, I can't. And again, number 6, salary resolutions. You've got it tied where the main guy gets a raise and then people below him get a raise because you can't have distancing. There's too much money now. You take government work out of a county, and probably the average salary is $20,000 a year. If you take government salaries out, you guys are all overpaid. This should be a voluntary position, but also I've heard people getting money, so I don't know. I didn't go over the thing. I thought we ought to, if you guys would meet 4 times a month, we could go down to one of these things. Hey, I've got a question, and be civil about it. Whose side are you on, man?
You're welcome to contact any of your supervisors.
I just got through saying it's been going on. I've got 2 years of paperwork, and all they do is put a lien on the guy's property. But in the meantime, a guy gets shot, my dog gets meth. I spent $5,000 on my dog. The people giving you meth. Last night, 4 new cars were in there. A girl screaming the other night, help me, I'm glad to leave. So I called it, it was 2 o'clock, I got up and called the sheriff. At 2:45, the sheriff calls me, and I said, look, those people have guns, they're drugs. I don't get outside, I'll call some girl screaming for help. Nothing's heard about it. Last night, there was 3 other cars. This has been going on, and nothing's done. My supervisors gave me a number.
Well, you should contact the sheriff's office. That's a sheriff's office issue.
Basically, we have rules, and I've seen something in here where it's on the consent calendar. Again, if it's run right, if I was up there, we'd say, anybody got a question on C2? Anybody got a question on C2? Anybody's got a question on C3? That's how I would run it. I'd be for the people. I wouldn't be against the people. If you don't like it, get your ass out and go with the sheriff over in Idaho.
Thank
be
you,
for
Tom.
the people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other than the C6 request, which we have pulled off the consent calendar, I have no other requests to speak.
I have the card in.
To speak on the consent calendar?
Yes, I have a card. It just has my name on it. I didn't fill out all those blanks.
And what's your name?
Jeff Lowe.
Oh, he's not open for one moment time.
I have you down for open time.
It just has my name. I didn't.
I know I have that. Do you want to speak to an item on the consent calendar?
I want to speak on the entire consent calendar.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Little trick I learned a couple weeks ago.
It is nice, isn't it?
You've been hiding this from me. That's discrimination. Oh, there we go. Okay, clarification on our allowed time to speak.
Please start the clock.
Please start the clock. The 45 minutes you were referring to, is that strictly for open comment? Does it apply to the consent calendar also?
It's the public open comment time, but you may speak to a regular agenda item or the consent calendar during that time as well.
Oh, okay. But then when we get to the consent calendar specifically, do we have to name a specific number? There's 22 items on the consent calendar. If there's a 45-minute limitation on that, that's 2 minutes per item total.
And that's why there's time now during the consent calendar to speak to the consent calendar.
Okay, so any individual consent, there's a time limit on that?
No.
Or no time limit. Okay, that's good to know. Let's see. Recently, we had some discussion about the ARPA money and the strings that are attached to it, and I'd like to ask a question. Have we spent any of that money?
That's not on the consent calendar, sir.
No. What is in the consent calendar is where all the money is. And there's lots of money in the consent calendar.
Yeah, but that's not the ARPA money.
That's not the ARPA money.
That's coming in a future meeting.
Yes, but we have spent an obligated ARPA money.
But that's not on the consent calendar today.
not today, but it was earlier, we were told money was not spent. I have the minutes from August, where indeed we spent $628,000 of it. I was understanding that there was supposed to be a spending plan. Has that been developed?
It's coming at one of our future meetings.
So we spent money without a spending plan. Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Pretty much sure it's true. Also, we've authorized our director of
Again, are you speaking to the
HHSA.
consent calendar, sir?
Yes, this is spending money. The money is being spent by the HHSA as we speak. Every month it is.
No, I'm talking about something on today's consent calendar.
It's money that's being spent. It's
not-
using ARPA money that we were told is not being spent.
You're talking about something in the past, not the consent calendar.
Yeah, that was on the consent calendar too. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Is it today?
It was previous consent calendar.
That's not today, sir.
I see. Thank you very much, Mr. Moty. You've really demonstrated your opposition to public comment. I'm done.
I don't have any other I take that back. I do have one more here that just came in. Mr. Raposo?
Well, I'm looking at the whole consent calendar, and I'm questioning whether or not this board has the integrity to vote on any of this. And I think that files under that. We've had an outburst here today, and I hope we don't have one during the consent calendar. I think that the rhetorical questions that are coming back from you guys and also the rhetorical things you're saying, you interrupted public comment several times. I counted it up. It wasn't 45 minutes. You still have about 5 minutes left. And basically what I'm looking at here is a situation of tyranny. In the Constitution of California, you're required.
Mr. Raposo, please speak to the consent calendar.
Excuse me. Please don't interrupt me because I'm talking about the consent calendar.
Then please speak to the consent calendar.
Please don't interrupt me.
Please
don't interrupt me.
Please speak to
Mr.
the
Moty,
consent
please don't interrupt me. With all due respect, which you don't have, with all due respect, please don't interrupt me again. Again. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about some of these things here. We're going to talk about an ordinance. Well, if we have an ordinance that's coming through, which would be actually Article 11 of the California Constitution, where ordinances are balanced and all that, we have to have some kind of integrity on a board, which some of you have and some of you don't. In fact, if people have been to the grand jury before, to me, I'm thinking, do I want them to vote on it?
Can you tell us which item you're speaking to?
My thought process is, don't interrupt me, Mr. Moty. I still have a minute 27, so I'm going to take another 8 seconds because you interrupted me.
Oh, you're not.
And that is that basically this is not run by a tyrannical situation. The people are your employers. The $34 million is in question. The raises are in question. The ordinances that you're passing now or approving now without the integrity are in question.
Mr. Raposo, you're not speaking to the consent calendar.
That's your opinion, sir, and you're interrupting me again. I think I am.
I haven't heard you speak to a single item yet. You just generalities. You haven't spoken to a single item on the consent calendar. Could you please tell us which one you're speaking to?
Sure. Let's speak to C5.
Okay.
C6, C4, C3, C2. Let's see. How about C12? Let's speak to that. C12. Well, you need to have. You're taking a retroactive renewal agreement of money. Okay, now we were talking about the money before. Well, there's money there, and you're going to be spending more money, yet we don't have any money because we desperately need the money, according to you, the $34 million, even though there's strings attached. So I would say that basically before this board does anything else, we should wait till after the recall. That's what I think, because I don't think that the integrity is here. You've done several things this morning, Mr. Moty, that violate a lot of things in the Brown Act, and frankly, I think the
Thank you,
integrity
Mr.
is
Raposo.
gone.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on the consent calendar is Lori Bridgeford. And just for clarification, all the money we receive from the state and federal government has strings attached.
Hey, Lori, District 4, Shasta County citizen journalist, and I'm going to be putting together with Richard podcast number 13. I am not clear exactly how much back and forth has gone in this meeting since you took the chair seat, Leonard. However, I'm constantly aware of people that are having cognitive and neurological problems from their vaccines. I don't know if you've been once, twice, or 3 times. Don't interrupt me.
I'm going to.
You're tempted.
Please
I'm
speak-
clarifying.
Please speak to the consent
gonna
calendar. Can you tell me which ones, please?
Pretty much all of them. Adult services, public health. I'm an MFT. I know much is happening to our young children, the drugs, the suicide, trafficking. How handy they can be in a mask and be carted off to who knows where. Where's public health? Public health, pick one. I don't care. Pick one of these. Public health.
Sounds like public comment, not consent calendar.
Again, your opinion. And I don't know when we're going to get public comment because you yanked it away today.
It's still there.
We don't know when, so that means I have to lose a whole day of work to sit here and through this suffering again. I've been here all last year.
Please speak
Still
to the
no
consent
night meeting.
calendar.
Pardon me?
Please speak to the consent calendar.
Pick one. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're wasting my time. The swamp is in the lead, and pick your priorities. Mary, if you're on too many boards and commissions, that's your problem. If you're saying yes to everything, look at your boundaries. You're overdoing it. You're extending
Excuse me,
yourself.
you're not speaking to the consent
I can talk about what I want to. It relates to this whole problem with COVID. This is why all this money's getting wasted and thrashed, abused, 25% flat raises for people for doing what? What has Karen Ramsden, Donnell, and Robin Sherrod done to help the situation? They perpetuate the corruption and fraud from Gavin and the CDC. I tried calling twice. The lines are busy. Circuits are busy. This came out Friday, these home tests. Do you know what the agents are in this?
That's not on the consent calendar.
No, your opinion, sir. I don't know if I can wait all day again. No one pays for my lost time to listen to you guys fight and haggle. Autopsies. Why is there metal in the bodies?
Please
I might not
speak to
come
the
back for
consent
open
calendar.
comment. You keep interrupting me. Keep it up. You're just giving yourself away. These pregnancies, Karen, Donnell, disformed babies, and they're promoting when in the beginning they said not to. This is all about the public health, waste, redactions. Why are 24 redacted there?
That's not on the consent calendar.
Well,
Can you
I
tell me
don't-
which item you're speaking to?
I told you pick one.
You
It's all a
haven't picked
blur.
any. No,
It's a
you-
cluster. Cluster 8, cluster 11, cluster 8, 9, 10.
Is there,
It's a
is there
blur.
a specific issue you have with one of those items?
Yes, I have an issue with the entire system, actually.
Okay. Then that you should come back. Well, you had your chance.
I don't know when to come back. I have to waste my whole day. I don't have 5 other jobs.
I believe you already spoke during public comment.
No, I did not. I came with R1 and R2. I did not have open comment.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Moty?
Yes, sir.
A question for Mr. Cruz again. Mr. Cruz, is it necessary for a speaker to have to address a specific item, or may they simply address consent?
A speaker can address either a specific item or items or the entire consent calendar with, of course, the idea that they are addressing the consent calendar and not using it to make a general comment unrelated to the consent calendar.
Thank you. And I would agree that I would prefer to hear comments that are related directly to consent on the consent calendar, but there is no requirement to state a specific item. If a person opposes consent in general, it's okay for you to get up and speak your mind. We are not in a position to limit your discussion. Thank you.
And I would, just for clarification, Supervisor, I have no issue with that whatsoever. I just was trying to find out which item she was speaking to so I could focus on that item to see what the issue was.
Well, then we both clarified. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I have no other speakers listed.
Mine's up there. I just didn't have it marked.
You want to speak on consent calendar?
I do.
Okay.
I'm going to speak on a couple of things. I'm looking specifically at C6 because of the increases in salaries. And I have a question on the bifurcation of the public comment, which relates specifically to this, because what is the purpose of the bifurcation of the period of public comment? Why is there a specific reason that is occurring?
Again, this is consent calendar items.
I know. I'm talking about the consent calendar items because it directly relates to whether you do a public comment or do we have to do specifically each consent item.
Well, as always been established, there is an opportunity for the public to speak to the consent calendar,
I'm asking-
separate from the public comment.
Can you answer my question? Why the bifurcation? What's the purpose of it?
The purpose of it, as I stated initially, so we can get to the business portion of the meeting, so those who are here for the business part, whether it be regular citizens, business owners, staff, whatever, we can get to their items so they can get back to the things where their work and those kind of things.
So it's not to split the public comment up and limit it to a certain amount of time so that you eliminate most of the public comment for a later time when people can't show up?
No, sir. And just a reminder that anybody can pass public comments on to their supervisors through phone, emails, letters, or social media.
Yeah, that'll do a lot of good. You know, I want to address this, and I want to address the recall just for a second too.
That's not on the consent calendar.
Well,
sir.
the recall has everything to do with
It's
your
not on the
ability to
consent
be a
calendar.
chairman
It's not on the consent
and
calendar.
your ability to make comment on the consent calendar in both cases. Because
Mr. Kent, please contain yourself to the consent calendar.
well, I'll contain to myself to what I think is relevant to the situation here, which is you're making a bunch of new rules on how the public speaks.
No, I'm using the chair's prerogative to run the meeting as they see fit. And every chair has said that in the past, so.
But you're changing all the rules, you three.
All the chairs have done that. Mr. Clementi, when he was the chair, he changed the rules the way he wanted them.
Okay.
Mr. Baugh, when he's the chair in the past, has done whatever he thinks is appropriate.
So, and has this ever happened where you've eliminated public comment in the morning?
We haven't eliminated public comment.
Well, you have. You've limited it to 45 minutes, which means you've eliminated most of the public comment in the morning. That's the question. Has that ever happened before?
If I can answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, there was an attempt to move public comment to the end of the agenda, and the board put it back at the beginning. That's the answer to your question.
And why would that be so? Why would what was the reasoning?
Again,
I have no idea what the reason was, but public comment should be up front.
Well, let's go back to Health and Human Services here, and or not Health and Human Services, but specifically C6, about salaries that are effective. You know, and I want to have a little more time here because we just ate up a bunch of it.
No, sir.
Going back and forth. So,
you don't.
And you know, this is typical of what
Your time is up.
your
time is up,
You've
sir.
turned into a petty tyrant there, Leonard.
Your time is up, sir.
And you think that you're
Please
the
step
king.
away. Please
Well,
step away.
Please,
Well,
you know,
you're
I
just
haven't.
gonna- you're
I've got
taking up
more than. Hey, wait a minute.
Please step away
I
from the
speak
mic.
for just a
No,
second.
you are done.
You said I
You're
get
done.
2 minutes per.
No, I did not say that.
Isn't that the rule?
No, it's not.
get
Step
2
away,
minutes-
Mr. Kent,
You
please.
get 2 minutes.
Step
per
away,
each
Mr.
C1?
Kent. Step
Don't you
away.
get 2 minutes per each one?
Step away,
Is
Mr.
that
Kent.
the fact? You spoke
No.
earlier.
Step away.
I thought that we got comment for each one for 2 minutes.
Okay, we are recessed for another 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Kent.
2 minutes per item, Moty.
Mr. Kent,
You get 2 minutes
settle
per
down.
C1.
You're interrupting the meeting.
I'm
Stop.
trying to get
Stop.
clarification.
Well, then stop.
All right, go for it then.
Step away from the podium.
Stay there, Mark. He has 2 minutes.
No, he does not.
I get 2 minutes per item according to your own counsel.
I don't think that's true. But let's ask, just for clarification, stop. 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 Mr. Cruz, could you please clarify what they're trying to say and what is the correct information?
The correct information is that the amount of time to be allocated per speaker under the board rules lies with the chair. And so, as I understand it, the information what was being provided was that so when a person speaks on the consent calendar or on particular items, it is within the chair's discretion to say you will have 3 minutes to speak on the consent calendar, as well as all of the items on the consent calendar. If the chair were to say, I will give you 1 minute to speak on each particular item, that is within the chair's discretion. If the chair were to say, I will give you 2 minutes to speak on each particular item on the consent calendar, then that is also within the chair's discretion. So that is what was being relayed. I did not say that a person is being entitled to 2 minutes to speak separately on each individual consent calendar item. What I believe I was trying to say is I understood it from Supervisor Moty's prior communication was that the total 45-minute of allotted time for the initial public comment open time was not being put forward onto the separate opportunity for speaking on the consent calendar.
So you have 3 minutes to speak about the consent calendar.
So, question?
Yes, sir. No, sir, not each item.
So, question. I'd like to ask a question just to clarify, Ruben and Leonard. So, the only reason this is happening is because of the attempt of not trying to hear people up front, which I recommend that we don't try that again, but it's just going to make it worse. But, and I understand you can do whatever you want to, and out of respect, you're going to do what you want to, but I'm just saying, next meeting, there'll be 200 people in here because of what you've done today. So, the question I have for you, our laws, our bylaws, our rules of conduct allow a person to speak on any item, period? Is that correct? So if they each put a card in for every item on consent, they can be asked to speak for every item on consent and have their allotted time. Is that correct? If they have a specific item to speak on. So if I want to speak to C2, C3, C4, if I put in a card for each item, I can speak to each item.
You could speak to each
Specifically
item.
to those items. And I'm not suggesting people try to take that time and talk about public, but if they genuinely have the interest in talking about more than one item, they can do so by an individual card. Is that correct?
An individual can speak on any number of items on the agenda during the time when it's brought up. That being said, that doesn't mean that if, for example, the chair were to say, you will have 3 minutes total to speak on items C1, C2, and C3, that is perfectly within the chair's discretion and the board rules.
But then the other people who are putting cards in are getting the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. So now you're saying two different things.
Well, perhaps the other
there are
people,
cards that are in
perhaps
advance.
The other people's time will then be limited. The point being, Supervisor Baugh, is that if people wish to speak for the consent calendar item, that's fine. As you can very well know, they are not speaking to the consent calendar.
Oh, and I agree.
They're using it to bypass and try to make public comment. So let's just move on.
But I do want the clarification, Ruben, and I want you to state it clearly. You have now just said if a person puts a card in advance for an individual consent item, the chairman is going to call it, and he's going to allow them 3 minutes to speak. That's what he said at the beginning of the meeting, our chairman, and that hasn't been changed that I know of yet, but it could be. Leonard can do that right now. Mm-hmm. But if they decide to put a consent or card in for more than one time, then their time is limited. Is that what you're saying? Because you need to go forward carefully here. You're saying it both ways.
Mr. Cruz, Ruben. I would suggest that we just, if you think you need to do any further research, be sure you're clarified everything. I think we need to move on with our meeting.
And you can certainly overrule me and move on with the meeting, but I've asked a question and I expect an answer.
And I think you're entitled to an answer, and I think Mr. Cruz can take his appropriate, make sure that he's got everything what he needs to give you a correct answer.
What about us? What about
Mr. Kent, Mr. Kent, please step away. Your 3 minutes are up.
I'm asking a question.
Your 3 minutes are up.
I understand.
Then you can call county council on your own. Okay. Mr. Kent, if you don't step away, I'm going to declare that you're interrupting and just this meeting, and we will have you removed. So please step away.
Okay. So you want to remove me for trying to get a...
Please step away. You can talk to county council at a separate time.
I want a public thing.
And he will bring back an answer. Mr. Kent, step away. You're delaying the meeting. Thank you.
Now we're more confused. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to, yes, sir, on a consent calendar item?
I'd like to speak a little bit about C2.
Thank you.
Which is the proposed calendar for the BOS. Are there any night meetings regularly scheduled for the calendar? I haven't had a chance to see what you guys have proposed.
Okay. Mr. Pontus?
Mr. Chair, currently there are no night meetings scheduled for this next year. However, as with every year, we take direction from the chair of the board and the majority of the board, and if there is a need for night meetings or a desire for night meetings, then the board could certainly direct us to do so. As the board is also aware, we added about 5 meetings last year for special items and other items, and that's the chair's prerogative as well.
Okay, very good to know. I'd say we should have some regularly scheduled night meetings, maybe one a month, maybe one every 2 months, and that's my one recommendation. The other recommendation is to have a special night meeting for the topic of vaccinations, wherein we could convene a panel of local doctors, 3 or 4 maybe. I'm not sure how they would be chosen, but we'd like a broad spectrum, not just doctors that are in on what I call a party line of they're safe and effective, everybody stick out your arm. Can have those, but we need them balanced with other doctors who are experienced with treating COVID-19 through other non-label prescriptions, such as ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, in people that might be knowledgeable about nutrition. In other words, how to build up our own immunity. So I'd like to see a panel of that, special night meeting that you guys could sponsor, because a lot of our budget goes to health and human services, and those are the guys that do nothing, as far as I can see, except get the jab, get the jab, get the jab. You know, I think we need a lot more spectrum of ideas here, because the jabs are not as successful as we once thought they might be, are they? Okay, so those are my 2 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other requests to speak on the consent calendar.
I'm not speaking. I'm just, in case I can't come back because this meeting's taking too long, I want to leave in the box
Thank you.
10 copies,
Thank
and
you.
it's the 3
Thank
phases
you,
of
Ms.
COVID
Richford.
vaccine mortality.
Thank you.
Yeah, take a very good look at this.
Thank you. I have a request from Freedom to speak to C4.
Okay, so I'm seeing that it is an ordinance of the Board of Supervisors of the County of Shasta amending an ordinance of 665, and in it I'm seeing that it's an adopting public facility fees for all new development within the County of Shasta. I'm pretty sure that this has to do with the fires, and all of those are going to have to be new developments. So how much in extra fees are going to have to be supplemented by the public who are already victims, and how much of that is being supplied from the money that was already given to the county that should have been going to the victims and not the county?
Okay, we'll have staff respond to that. You have anything else? I see you put in for C5, so that's part of your 3 minutes, so go ahead.
No, I'll wait for the answer on that, so that way it clarifies what I need to go into on
Staff will
C5.
answer all the
So
questions.
who's
when
the
you're
staff that will answer that, because you're being very vague?
finished. I'm going to turn to Mr. Pontus and ask.
So Mr. Pontes, can you please answer the questions that I had?
So, to the speaker through the chair, we can have our Director of Resource Management come in and give a quick update on those items.
Okay, I'd appreciate that, so that way I know how to answer C5, which is a different consent calendar item. Thank you.
Do you want to
So is he going to
finish?
come in now? Because this is when we're discussing this, so that way I know how to go about that?
Freedom, he will be coming over as soon as we can get him over here. You still have.
And
Do you
so
want us-
then,
I'm
okay,
at-
thank you. The salt and bonfires, so how much of the funds, because I just don't understand, because you're going to end up voting on this. You're going to end up voting on this before that person comes, because you're already jumping ahead to try to move through the Cs before getting to the rest of them. So how can you make that acceptance or vote on it if we haven't gotten the answers beforehand? Because again, this is something that's needing to come before the people that are actually affected by it, not just your pocketbook.
Okay, the normal procedure is we get your questions, we'll bring someone over to talk about it, and then we'll vote.
And then you'll vote when we don't have a chance to ask another question in regards to it and how the monies are being spent. Have any of the funds
This is the
for
way the
the
process
salt,
works.
have any of the funds for the salt and bonfires been used or allocated yet? And have any of those funds gone to the actual victims, not the people that are actually lining their pockets? Because I honestly don't trust you guys. There's a lot of funds that have been misappropriated and have not gone to the people that it's supposed to have gone to, just like the funds that have gone from the Health and Human Services that's extremely bloated. And you guys are already, I'm pretty sure, in another one of these amendments, going to be trying to give them more funds as well on top of what we already have as our budget, and half of our budget goes to them already, and you now want to give them more funds. So I'm just trying to see where the allocation of the funds that should be going to the actual victims and whether it's going to go to the actual victims. I have friends that have lost their homes in the fire that happened in Carr that still didn't receive any funds, and also another friend that lost their home in the salt fire. So I'm just curious if they're actually going to see any of the funds that are supposed to be allocated to the actual victims of these fires before you vote to take more funds from them. Because you honestly haven't listened to a single thing any of us have said. And you want respect, but you give none. So therefore, you'll get none. Good day, sir.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
And just for clarity, because my understanding is C4, we're suspending the fees, correct? And we're just going to reevaluate them. And I think Supervisor Boss at the last meeting, he didn't want to burden some future supervisor with all of a sudden being the person that takes this away. So we're going to reevaluate. This board will be reevaluated every 2 years. This is a suspension of fees. This isn't an increase in fees. It's a suspension of fees.
Yeah, and that's what I took it as too.
Public facility fees for all new development.
Yeah. To be imposed is hereby suspended. We are suspending it as meaning that we're not going to be charging it, and we're going to review it in 2-year increments. This board will review it in 2-year increments. The thought being was we discovered that people were paying impact fees. Impact fees are designed exclusively to mitigate the impact of their development, and their development wasn't doing that. In one case, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone up here, we gave money back to a developer.
We did.
That's the purpose of this. This is to protect
To the developer or to the people that are actually victims?
I've said what I'm going to say. You can interpret that as you wish. This is a suspension of those fees, for clarity.
That was for a developer in my district, and I worked with him, and he was able to get a refund from the county.
I have Wynn Carpenter who wants to speak to C2.
Okay, I have a couple questions about C2, the approval of the proposed calendar of Board of Supervisors meetings for the year of 2022. Of the highlighted dates that are on the calendar, there are 25. There are 52 weeks in the year. Why only 25? 2 meetings a month. Why?
Yeah, we addressed that already, but there's several reasons. One is for the efficiency, and by moving meetings together, our CEO is trying to reduce staff time so it's not wasted money. Someone already complained about that as well. Keep in mind the cities have only 2 meetings a month, or their council meetings, and we think we can get the work done.
So you can get all the work done in half the time.
Well, it's not half the time.
That's right. It's less than half the time. It's 25 out of 52. Therefore, it's less than
well, we
half
were
the
only
time.
meeting like 36 times or 35 times.
No, 25.
For those that
No,
were,
previously in this current year. So we reduced it down to 25. And yes, we think we can get that done just like the cities can get it done.
So you can do the people's business
Yes, sir.
in half the time.
if you had followed our board meetings over the years, we'd have some meetings we'd adjourned at 10:30 in the morning. This way, we're trying to be more efficient with our time and taxpayer dollars by having longer meetings but fewer of them.
But you're spending more taxpayer dollars.
No, we're
No, we're not.
Well, clearly you are. I mean, you're giving raises, and your budget has grown immensely.
What's that have to do with the meetings?
Everything, because you vote on all these issues.
I understand that.
This is the people's business.
Okay, go ahead. Anything else you want to say?
Well, yeah, I just wanted some clarification on why there are only half as many meetings as weeks in the year, and why you're not meeting more often to get these things done.
And we just answered.
Okay, that's your answer, and you're standing by it? Okay, I guess your silence is a yes. All right, thanks.
Well, just to clarify, the item has been pulled specifically from the consent discussion to be addressed separately, and I'm certain that I have questions about it. And since Mr. Jones pulled it, I'm pretty sure that he has questions about it. So there's more discussion to come on that item that was pulled separately.
Thank you, Supervisor. Monique, you want to speak to C2 and C12?
Please. Good morning, fellow constituents. Good morning, Board. My name is Monique Willeen. And C2, approve proposed calendar of Board of Supervisors. And then C12, thank you for helping me find that. Take the following actions to approve 2 retroactive renewal agreements in an amount not to exceed $50,000 to each to provide acute psychiatric inpatient services. Adventist Health St. Helena, Adventist Health Vallejo, and St. Helena Hospital, which none of these hospitals are here. So what I want is clarification. You are going to approve future meetings. Is there some future meeting to discuss having a life center or inpatient facility here, not in St. Helena or in Vallejo or in somewhere else? Can you please advise me on if you've got something like that in the future?
Well, we may, but that's not relevant to our calendar. But we have talked previously that we have things that we're going to work on.
Okay, so I'm going to say for 5 years I've been coming, and I feel it's quite dismissive when, as an individual who's been consistent in coming and not fighting with people, okay, I don't want to fight, but what I'm hoping for is a better mental health for people here inside our county. So what I'm asking for is for your proposal meetings to have discussion about having the actual life center here. That way we don't have to pay other counties for it. Does that make sense?
Can I answer that? Monique, when I was on the mental health board, at one point we had 0 beds in Shasta County. I believe that number, and I may be wrong, but is roughly around 55 beds. If you contact Shasta Regional Medical Center, they now have an inpatient facility. And so we do have many beds in this county, and we also have is it RestPad? And so we do have beds. And so this is just in case we need, if there's an overflow, we need extra beds. It's ideally, and you and I understand this enough, it's ideally to house people here locally so that their family can have contact with them, so that they can heal faster and get back on their feet quicker. And so we do have those beds, and we're very fortunate to have them.
Okay, and I respect what you just said, but what I'm stating is you're talking about your proposed meetings. Can we have that discussion to discuss the Life Center? Because albeit we might have these beds, what I'm looking for is a rehabilitative option in the future. So what I'm asking for you guys is to help me out so I don't feel like you're ignoring everything I say. Because I don't come up here just to waste my time. I'm really trying to help those who cannot help themselves. So for the proposed meetings, can we discuss having a Life Center so we can help those who cannot help themselves? Thank you.
Thank you. Dolores, you want to speak on doing C2 here?
I would like for the Board of Supervisors to basically put on your calendar for 2022 to include how to discipline your behavior and how to take away your salary for doing such a lousy job. That needs to be on there because you work for us, not the other way around. So that needs to be on there because the way you've been running these Board of Supervisors meeting, you've done a lousy job. So therefore, the public needs to basically kind of say, well, let me see if Moty's doing a great job or Ricker or Joe Clemente. We could just say, you know what? We need to, take some salary away from you. You're not doing your job. You're just dictating everything you do here. You work for us.
Please refer to the
I am.
C2.
Don't, you know what? Stop dictating everything. You know, Moty, I'm so sick of you. I pray to God in the name of Jesus, He removes you from office, whatever which way He does it. Because I know there's going to be a lot of cheating voter fraud here in this county.
Please concern yourself
I am.
with C2.
So I need you to
C2
listen.
is the calendar.
Stop interrupting. I'm sick of you.
You're not talking about C2, please.
Yes, I am. That's your behavior. That's my point. We need to remove your salary because your behavior sucks. And the way it's great that you're showing your true colors now because you're basically grasping for a straw just to figure out how to stay in office. You're doing everything you can to stay in office. That's why we need to put that on there.
Please talk about C2.
You know what, Moty? I pray that you will be removed
That's
no
fine.
matter what
I understand
you do.
that. Please refer yourself
I am.
to C2.
Stop it. I'm sick of that.
You're done.
No, I'm not. It's
Yes.
55.
No.
Couple of minutes.
Then talk about C2.
I am.
Okay, you're done.
Fine, I can still talk. You're a dictator. You're a Hitler. You're not going to stay in office no matter what you do because we're going to.
Please step away from the podium. You're not speaking to C2. It doesn't matter. You're not speaking to the consent calendar item. Dolores, please step away.
You're doing everything you can. I'm sick of you.
Your time is up. Thank you.
That's also Rickers. You sit there like you think you're just so.
Dolores, you're not speaking to the consent calendar item. That doesn't matter. You're not speaking.
Yes, it does.
Please step away.
Chair, if I could make a comment, please.
Yes, sir.
I just want to remind everyone that we represent the entirety of Shasta County. 180,000 people, 113,000 approximately of which are voters. We are elected by our respective districts and the voters in those districts, but we have a I'm talking now. We have a responsibility to represent everyone, the people who agree with us and the people who disagree with us. So I just want to make that clear and have that on the record. Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Step away, please. I have one more speaker to call up.
You took all my minutes, my seconds for me to speak. You're not going to get away with
A Denny Pollock.
dictator Hitler.
Good morning. It's certainly been an entertaining morning today. So I was very disappointed to see the calendar is that the meetings on the calendar for this coming year are cut and that there are no night meetings. And again, like everyone else or like many people, I would like to request night meetings for the people who work and cannot take the time to come here. And while I've only been coming here for the last year, I'm not familiar with what happened and how many meetings you had prior to the last year. And I just want to say that I used to be a very busy person, but COVID cut everything and shut everything down, so I had to entertain myself by coming to these meetings and see what was going on. But my main point here is just to ask for more meetings, evening meetings, and let the people who work come and express their opinions, not just the same people all the time, but maybe we could get some more people here with different concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We are going to, Freedom, you've put another speaker in, but you've already had your 3 minutes, so I'm not going to accept that. And you've added 2 more, and I'm sorry, you've had your 3 minutes.
I'm going through, they're all different ones, and there's 22 of them, and there's no way in 3 minutes.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Once again, you're not respecting listening.
I do have, we're going to go to the consent calendar. I just want to remind Mr. Gardner and Ms. Walker that I do have your request.
Thank you. That's
for C6. It got pulled, and there will be an opportunity for you to speak directly to that.
Thank you.
So I will look for a motion on the consent calendar.
The balance of consent, correct?
Other than C2 and C6, correct.
Thank you.
I make a motion to move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion from the board? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We now will address separately C2. We'll start with C2. So, Mr. Jones, you pulled that. Do you have some comments you want to start with?
Yeah, I did. So, I too am disappointed that we only have 25 meetings, and a good example of why that's incorrect and why we should have at least 3 meetings per month is our very last meeting having 900 pages on the agenda. It is very difficult to be very thorough when you're going over 4, 5, 6, 7, 800, 900 pages of staff report. What that says is you've put 2 meetings, amount of work in 1 meeting, and things are going to get skipped, and it's not good for the public. We need more meetings, not less meetings. We need smaller agendas so we can go over them, and we need more meetings to give the public more time for public comment. That is the whole point of having these meetings, not less. To say that we are similar to the city would be incorrect. Our budgets are twice as big. We have twice as much information and twice as many things to go over. And staff is here to help us and to help you. And so if we're so concerned about staff, because I heard these same things at City Hall, and it's not about staff. It's about getting the information to the public to make sure that you're aware and that we spend your money wisely. And having less meetings, not more, is incorrect. And we continually ask for night meetings and never a night meeting. Unfortunately, at this point, if we only have 2 meetings a month, if we had one night meeting a month, that means half your meetings are night meetings because we have too few meetings to begin with. So, and it's not like I like to have meetings, every week, but that is the job. That would be better for the public, and it would get more information out, and we'd be able to scrutinize the agendas better and do a better job. And today, I can guarantee you, with what's going to happen in the future with putting so much information on these meetings with only 25, things are going to get missed. And things that were already missed in the past that were important. But when you put that amount of staff reports on one meeting, things are going to get missed, and it's not going to be for the benefit of the public. And so I'm not going to be approving this. I'll be voting no.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chairman. And so to clarify, I agree with the things that Supervisor Jones just stated, but I want to clarify, since you brought it up, Supervisor Rickard, my meeting with Matt was specifically about this item. I wanted to make sure that should I have the opportunity, because I think we all understood, and even I shared during that meeting, that it was very unlikely that you three would support me as chairman. So that was my prediction in advance. But should I have the opportunity, I wanted to tell Matt and then staff up front that my preference would be not to reduce any farther the number of meetings. I told you I was okay. I thought Joe had done a great job of putting it down to the very minimum that we needed to operate in the county, and that I wanted to have a minimum of 2, but my preference was 3. I called it, I believe I used a trimester solution to that of night meetings, not separate or on specific items, but I had asked for night meetings on regular county agendas so that we could literally test the waters. If we held a meeting on a regular counter item on a Tuesday at night instead, and it ends up being at the same time that all 3 cities are taking their meetings. For example, I'm going to be at the City of Anderson's meeting tonight to present a certificate to the outgoing mayor, which I happen to know fairly well. Grateful for their work down there. Would I be able to attend this meeting and that meeting at the same time? At the very least, I watch them all so I can keep up with what my district is doing. So my preference, and I wanted to let you know in advance, and your response to me was we can't put a calendar on the agenda until we choose a chair. So that's my question to you, is how did this calendar get on the agenda when we didn't approve a chair until today?
Supervisor Baugh, through the chair, as you and I discussed, I think it's important for the chair to dictate that meeting schedule for the next year. And I also know that it was our practice to get that done before the new chair was elected. So I thought it would be better just to bring it after or on the same day or after that. I think our team was looking for as soon as possible so they can load those agendas up with items. So we just put it on there as a recommendation for the board to go through, and whoever's chair can certainly change that. It's simply a recommendation from staff. If the chair or the majority of the board wants to have evening meetings at whatever frequency, that's certainly up to the board. This was simply a recommendation. There are a couple other things, if I have a second here.
You can take all the time you want.
That we changed. One of them was to remove board days on election days, because we have such a big part of the organization that is focused on trying to support the elections office during those. A lot of county folks participate and try and help run back and forth between those sites. And so we were trying to help and augment those staff over there so we don't have to hire more staff to help run some of those elections. So you'll see those changes. The other thing I was trying to do was to look at something that's a little more predictable. And even though we put this calendar out every year, there was no real consistency to when those meetings were. And as some of the speakers had commented, over the years it's changed to a certain number of meetings, per month and per year. And I think what you've seen, especially the speaker that brought up that the number has changed drastically from 20 years ago, and that's definitely true. Staff has gotten a lot more efficient with the paperwork that goes behind the production of getting these items to the board and to the public to consider. Also, we have changed internally to get these agendas out a day earlier than they were previously a couple years ago when I got here, to try and get the board and the public more information sooner. So they
And that
can
helps
have
us
it in a
too.
day.
Thank you.
And it's during a business day, which is the other important thing. If you have it released on a Thursday night, it gives a full business day during the week to answer questions from the public, and we do that a lot, or answer questions from the board. So in terms of staff being more efficient, in terms of staff backing up that date so that that information is released a little bit earlier, we can always add evening meetings throughout the year as we need, as you know, or additional meetings if we have other items come up. And then, again, we let the agendas kind of guide how many of those we have. And there were several this past year. We barely had enough items to actually have a meeting, as you're aware. Sometimes that happens. So certainly, if I see a really long agenda coming up, and to Supervisor Jones's point about having too many items on those agendas, I will ask the chair if we could add another meeting and split those things up. That's very reasonable. I think that when you really look at the number of agenda items that we have, like today, number of regular items, there are very few today. I'm not sure what next board meeting is going to look like, but certainly today there's only one or two extra items.
So, and I appreciate that, and that does clarify. Just for the point of clarification of public, the other item I talked about was my preference for having staff in-house, not on the screen, so that we can ask them questions in person. But that is also determined by action and direction of the chairman. I wanted to make sure that he knew, should I be offered the opportunity to chair again this year, I didn't want that to surprise him and come in at the last second and have him not hear my preferences should that have happened. But we know that it didn't. So then the main question is, I guess, for you, Chairman Moty, I've been willing to admit freely that I did discuss my preference should I be chairman. Are you willing to admit that as well?
I had no discussion with Mr. Pontes about the calendar.
Nothing?
No.
Okay.
It is not on my agenda. I have many other things to be working on. That was his choice by, I assume, working with staff and whoever else he worked with, but I did not have that conversation with him.
So then to clarify, why did you end up changing it when you said you weren't going to put it on this agenda?
End up changing. I'm sorry.
You told me it wouldn't be on today's agenda.
Oh no.
It wouldn't be on until the following week, the following meeting.
Oh, I think I said that it definitely wasn't going to be before we elected a new chair, that it would be either today or the following meeting, and that we would have those discussions.
Well, perhaps I misunderstood. Thank you.
Could have been my failure to communicate.
Thank you.
On that.
And Chair, if I may,
Yes, Supervisor Clemente.
lend some clarity. I was at the agenda review. It was my last agenda review. And we discussed that very topic of when we were going to put it on, and that it was better once the chair was there. But this was really something that, at least last year, that when I was the chair, that was just a tentative. We added several meetings. I'm going to say 4 or 5 at least. So to me, this process is fine because it's at best a minimum number of meetings. So I would like to make a motion that we approve C2, and I want to add, again, emphasis on the fact that as things come up, we will adapt and adjust accordingly. And sometimes we have thick board packets. We do. And you try as hard as you can to get through all the information, but that is our job. Our job is more to analyze and interpret information and create policy policy recommendations as a result of reading and interpreting that information than it is actually sitting here. So it is a full-time job. I can assure you it's a full-time job. And if you do it diligently, which I believe we all do it diligently, it will take a minimum of 40 hours, more than likely longer than that. And then with that, you work in all the other things you're supposed to do, up to and including being out in the community and meeting with people. I mean, I think that's real important. So with that, I will make a motion to approve C2.
And I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? I will just add a couple of things. There was discussion about, how thick the agenda is. Mr. Pontes, sometimes, 4, 5, 6, 900 pages. Is it not true that many of those times that those involve contracts from the state and their packets could be 150, 200 pages with all the documents that they include in their contracts?
Mr. Chair, that's usually the case, is that there's some long contracts and long language that our staff and county council, the auditor, everybody go through to make sure that we know what's in them and that we're agreeing on the right things.
So I think it's important to note that it's not always just 900 pages of information for us, but a lot of additional information that is reviewed by, as you mentioned, staff, including county counsel's office. And then the other thing it was mentioned was about the number of meetings. Several years ago and further back, and Supervisor Ball will know this as well, we had multiple meetings that would be 45 minutes, an hour, hour and 15 minutes. We didn't have quite as long public comment period. And so we found we were holding meetings and staff had to be not only prepare all the packet, time spent to do that, but also to be here and stuff. And for a 45-minute or hour meeting, we decided even back then to start reducing the number of meetings and combining them on the different times of the year that was effective, and still got all the work done easily. And still, instead of getting out doing 2 one-hour meetings, we would do 1 2-hour meeting or 1 3-hour meeting. So it's a matter of getting the work done, and so with that, I will ask all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 3-2. The next item is C6, and I have, excuse me, you're interrupting. I have C6 will be, Mr. Jones, you want to talk about that before the public comment or after?
No, do after.
Okay, so I have Elizabeth Walker to speak on C6, followed by Nick Gardner.
Apparently, January is Appraiser Appreciation Month because all the county appraisers are going to receive raises. These appraiser positions all received raises 6 months ago in the June budget. Now, 6 months later, you want to give an additional raise? Why? Have you evaluated their performance? How can you substantiate a raise after only 6 months, especially when certain members of this board claim the county is low on funds and we need more government aid? When you crunch the numbers, it appears that 4 positions already received additional raises since June. According to today's proposal, the appraisal manager, the real property appraiser aide, the senior supervising auditor appraiser, and the senior supervising real property appraiser have current salaries that are higher than the 21-22 budget. Yet there are no records of these positions receiving salary increases in the Board of Supervisors' agendas since June. So how are these salaries raised without the board's approval? Another red flag emerges when you compare today's proposed raises to the increase in pay for those positions over the last 2 budget periods. In today's proposal, the senior supervising auditor appraiser, the senior supervising real property appraiser, and the real property appraisers 1 and 2 will receive an increase after only 6 months that is higher than the 12-month increase from June 2020 to June 2021. And the first 2 positions will receive more than double the amount of increase. There's another discrepancy concerning the adult custody cook 1 and 2. These positions received an increase in salary on December 14, 2021, but today's proposal lists these current salaries higher than what they were voted on in the last meeting in December. How is that possible? Similarly, salaries for Animal Regulation Officer 1 and 2 were raised on October 19th of last year, and today's proposal says the current salaries are higher than what was voted on in October. This sounds similar to the mystifying increase in salary that was given to the newly created Assistant CEO position a year ago. This board voted on a set salary range in November 2020, but when the position was soliciting applicants the following February, the salary scale was mysteriously raised without any record of this board voting on the raise. Considering all these things, it looks like either someone doesn't know how to count or there's something shady going on with the numbers. Spend, 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 indiscriminately and without accountability. This seems to be the modus operandi of many on this board. There is no doubt that this county needs a forensic audit so that we know exactly where our money is going.
Mr. Gardner?
Well, I'm opposed to these raises. I've been opposed to all raises for about the last 5 years. I think that our management is grossly overcompensated. That being said, we're at the verge of taking $34 million, but the strings attached will be in the future. We don't know. I read in a paper yesterday where the state has a $76 billion surplus they're trying to figure out how to spend. I'd like to encourage you to file a restraining order on them spending that money and get together the 23 states that were involved with the Jefferson movement and sue them for $1 billion apiece. You could pay off all your unfunded liabilities and have a $500 million left over. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. I also have a request from, it looks like Beely? What is it? Becky? Oh, I'm sorry, Becky. To speak to C6.
So my question is, do we have an audit on each and every one of these departments that we're voting to put a raise on? Okay. By who?
There is an annual audit done by our independently elected auditor, as well as an outside firm is hired and comes in and does an audit as well.
Was it forensic?
Mr. Pontus?
Chair Moty, there's lots of ways to conduct those audits. I can't tell you if the one we do annually every year, where do we farm out to an outside firm, is a forensic audit, or if it's classified as something else at this time. I'm happy to get back to the board and let them know.
Standard auditing principles are applied on both of those audits. The term forensic audit is generally detailed, meant to review the detail of individual line or individual check spending, and that is not the type of audit that any government applies on a normal annual basis. So that's a direct answer to your question. The answer is no.
So can I ask for a forensic audit where the public gets to view all of this?
You can review any of it. You can go to the auditor's office and ask for any information you want, and they'll provide it to you.
Okay, so are you going to pay my fee?
No.
On the Freedom of Information Act?
Oh, I don't know
because
about
that should be.
I don't know what all the requirements are on that, but you can either ask for that, or if you have specific questions and want to go into the office and ask them, I'm sure that staff would be happy to talk. They do it quite frequently when people show up. If you have something specific as you want, they'll help you with that.
Okay. So I just ask that you table this until you guys are able to go over this audit. And it would be nice if you went over this audit in a Board of Supervisors meeting so that the public doesn't have to go ask another when we are paying you to go over this.
The audit is brought to the board, and if you want to ask questions during that time, you can do that. And the audit's available to you. If you want to get a copy of the audit and look at that, you can as well. Again, it's done internally as well as externally, and I will say that our auditor's department has received multiple years in a row recognition for how well of a job that they do.
From who? The government agency? It's kind of redundant.
Not from the government agency, no.
So once again, you don't need to spend any more of our tax dollars. We need to sit and see how things play out. You guys have spent way more than you ever should have. You have put my children and my grandchildren in debt. So please table it.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the requests I have on C6. Do we have Mr. Okay. Oh, I just was going to see if there's any staff response, but Supervisor Jones, go ahead. Let's see what you.
Well, so maybe we should bring this back a little bit later and ask Shelley Forbes to come up. One of our speakers, Ms. Walker, did bring up some interesting points. I would like to make sure that that is correct. Clearly, she's brought some things up that should be verified. I would like to also ask some other questions. Do we have retention issues in these areas? And so that I think those are important. And also what the total cost would be with regards to unfunded liabilities. You know, and I would have liked to have seen this in a regular calendar as opposed to a consent. Anytime we're going to give 28 or 29 raises, I think that is worth discussing. So, if
Well, Ms. Forbes is here. If you'd like to have her, we can have her come up.
if she can come up, that would be great.
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment. Being in the appraisal business ourselves, in our personal business, there's a real shortage of appraisers, and it's probably hard to find good people, I would assume.
All right, thank you, Shelley. You did hear Ms. Walker make a couple of those notes, and so what can you say to some of those questions, or to all of those, please?
So I think as far as the pay discrepancies that are being mentioned, it's probably COLAs that have been adopted. As the board knows, typically when we bring those forward, we do them in 2 to 3 year terms based on bargaining units and based on the MOUs. And so they're already pre-lined out. So sometimes you'll see where we bring something forward and it'll be set somewhere, and then a COLA will hit in between the next time it comes, and that's where the pay discrepancy would be.
And so we're certain that is the issue here. Certain.
That would be the only issue that I could imagine that this would be. We don't go and make changes to pay schedules without taking it to the Board of Supervisors. That requires board action. So it's not something that we would just randomly increase a salary.
Ms. Walker also mentioned that quite a few of these positions had received raises mid last year. Is that correct as well?
So we did do a salary study of the Animal Regulation Officer series, I believe, with the October personnel amendments, and they received a minor increase at that time. I don't have those numbers with me right off the top of my head. And actually, this time we're not increasing their salary. What we're doing is deleting an Animal Regulation Officer 1-2 and adding a new classification of a 3, which is intended to be like a lead role who will help support the division in teaching and training and answering daily technical questions. It kind of acts as a backup to a supervisor. And that's what the goal with that position is as the sheriff's office is looking at their operations and analyzing a recent change with a retirement, they decided that they needed to have this added layer to help support the functions in their department.
And with regards to the appraisers, appraisers 1, 2, and 3, real property appraisers, senior supervising auditors, are we having trouble maintaining those positions, and what brought the raise forward?
So what actually brought that forward, as you may recall, in December, we brought a regular item we bring every year these days with minimum wage increases. And as part of that minimum wage increase, the county has historically maintained all of our county positions at 5% above the minimum wage. With that study, we include any positions tied by job classification to a career path. And when we did that study this year, it was brought to our attention that we missed this series that is tied to another series within the assessor's office. So we basically were taking that and correcting that action. And they do have difficulty hiring these positions, but it wasn't associated to that for this particular item.
And do we know with these raises what kind of upward pressure does that put on our unfunded liabilities? Do we have a number?
So typically in the finance section of the board report, that includes the salary and benefits. It should, usually. And this one, it looks like it broke it down for each affected department. I don't know, do you want me to list those out individually?
Well, I was just looking at a total number. That's kind of how I was used to it, is if we have a section like this, what is it going to cost with regards to pension debt? That's all I was looking for, just kind of a round number as a total. I'd have to add up all these individually, obviously. And I didn't know if we had it broken down that way. It'd just be nice to see total future costs with regards to any given pay increase. And this obviously is not a huge group of people, but it's big enough that it would be a number that might interest me.
I can certainly calculate this all out for you and give that to you. And we can certainly make note of that going forward, too, that we ensure that we include a total amount when we have multiple departments that are affected this way.
And with regards to the sheriff and the county jail, the cooks 1, 2, and 3, are those areas also that are affected? They're having trouble maintaining those people, or what's our deal with our cooks?
So with our cooks, we are continuously recruiting for cooks. It is a position that's hard to fill. It's low paid, and it's working with inmates in the jail, and they do struggle to keep it filled and to fill it. So it is one that tends to continuously be running.
All right, thank you.
We get them filled for a short period, and they're up again.
Chair Moty, that was most of my questions. Could we break this out into 2 sections for the sheriff county jail / sheriff animal shelter, and then the rest? Could we vote on it in 2 separate motions?
First, I have another speaker, Supervisor Clemente.
I just want to confirm in reading the board report that the actual physical impact of this was minimal, because my understanding was we were deleting some positions so that we could subsidize these current positions, which is given a difficult job market is actually quite a smart thing to do. If you're asking less people to do more, then you give them more compensation and put a higher level of accountability on them. And that's my understanding. Is that correct?
Correct. And 2 of the areas in here, we deleted the allocations that were previously like a 1, 2, and then added the 3. That way, it's a minimal impact to the funding piece of it. So
Okay.
we're not then adding a whole new position and a whole new salary level.
So that would explain why there were some raises to these individuals, because we've eliminated positions.
Correct.
That's an accurate statement. Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chairman. And as to the clarification on the COLAs, just to add some more information, and correct me if I'm not stating it correctly, but the board annually or every 2 or 3 years, depending on the length of a contract, employs negotiators, and Mr. Pontes is part of that team, to sit down with those various groups and discuss what might happen in the next 2-year or 3-year cycle. Sometimes it has been a single-year cycle, depending on the department. Once those, and if those are approved, then they would take place automatically, subject to the recommendations that are continuously brought forward by staff. So those are things that were discussed immediately when we were negotiating, and then, just like you saw this year, raises that were given, and they will keep coming back to us as long as that contract exists. And then we'll start the whole process over again. I want to make sure that people don't think that that's something you just put on there to have some fun with it. So.
No, correct. Yeah, we follow the Myers-Milius-Brown Act, and our labor relations are driven by that. And we do have a contracted labor relations attorney that works with us, with myself in the CEO's office, and we do actually sit and negotiate with our unions and take all that information to the board for adoption.
So the same with the negotiation to reduce compensation when it came to medical expenses. That was also agreed on by not only our labor teams, but by this Board of Supervisors and our own contributions that we just voted on the last week. The last meeting, we agreed to decrease our compensation.
You're correct.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody understands that's not something that this department head brings just because she wants to bring it. There are lots of thought that are brought to all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Baugh. I also just want to make a comment. There was something was mentioned earlier by one of the speakers that, about the $34 million ARPA money and salaries. It's certainly not my intent, and I don't think it's the intent of this board to use one-time ARPA money for salaries and benefits. That's something that's being spread around. But I think it's our intention to use one-time money for one-time projects and facilities and things that will deal with issues that we have. So I just wanted to speak to that I certainly wouldn't support using ARPA money for pay raises, and that's just not being contemplated as far as I know. So, Mr. Jones, to your request, I think I'm going to keep the items.
Supervisor Jones.
Excuse me, Supervisor Jones. My apologies. I'm going to keep it all as one item. If you wish to express your displeasure or approval for one side or the other, you feel free to do that. So I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve for approval.
And I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Carries 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to our regular calendar. Item R3, which is receive an update from county executive on county issues or legislative report, and then supervisors' reports. And with the supervisors' reports, we'll start with Supervisor Jones. Mr. Pontus.
Mr. Chair, Board, I just wanted to give just a quick recap. We just completed a long year of a lot of really good projects and a lot of really good information out there. Obviously, as an organization, we still have a lot of folks still dedicated to the COVID-19 portion of the response with our HSSA group. This past year, as certainly Supervisor Jones and I can attest, the Fawn Fire came through our neighborhoods and certainly impacted hundreds of folks in the evacuation. And due to some swift work in the response, we were able to get that fire stopped, and we've moved now obviously into a recovery fashion. The same thing in the Salt Fire, where over 30 homes were impacted there. The Dixie Fire, and as everyone here knows, we're still recovering from the Carr Fire with building still going on. The Zog Fire is another one that has happened in the last couple years, and certainly we are still in the recovery phases of that, working on with our Cal Recycle partners on removal of household hazardous waste. The county's also been focused on drought, trying to make sure that we keep emergency potable water for communities like Sugarloaf and Jones Valley out there. We also, this past year, had as this board is aware, had a geotechnical issue out there, an emergency water project out there that Director Minturn was managing, and in an effort to do some emergency engineering, was able to keep the water systems flowing up there for our residents up there. Also, this past year, we were able to get through a completion of a windmill project that was taken to the board and had a lot of engaged public and board on that project. And it was another, certainly an interest, a community interest that happened. This past year, we also worked with multiple county departments and members of the public and members of other agencies on our illegal marijuana eradication and enforcement, putting a lot of other operations out there and really focused on trying to start making a big dent in that. And you'll see as we come back to the board this spring, more discussions on increasing our staffing and our funding towards that initiative as well. This year, we also started moving towards construction, making some modifications to our new Emergency Operations Center that will help focus our teams and our agencies here locally on emergency response and support of the incident. So that's a partnership between our office and the Sheriff's Office. And the Sheriff has been leading the charge in that to make sure that we have the adequate level of training and support at that facility. That facility, as this board is also aware, is going to house our South County Patrol Office, which is a really important upgrade. The facility that we currently have is way past its service life and antiquated and certainly not fitting of something we would want to be in ourselves. So we're able to accomplish both of those operations out of the new facility, and it's exciting. We're going through that process right now of designing what that's going to look like, and we'll be back before your board soon with a recommendation to move forward with some changes in those. So we're looking forward to that conversation as well. As the board's also aware, we're in the middle of construction of a county fire station out in our south part of the county that is still on track and that we are still very anxious to have come online. This board, under direction of Larry Lees, went out and did some energy retrofit solar modifications to several county facilities, and that construction project is coming to a close now, and we'll be able to report out in the future on how much money that's going to save the county, and hopefully it's our intent to save a lot of money in utility bills and put that back into public safety and some of those other priority areas of the board. In addition to that, another great thing going on out there is an upgrade to our public safety communications network out there, those towers and that infrastructure that's on those towers, to make sure that our first responders and those folks out in the field can adequately talk to dispatch and get back and have those important conversations. So we're going through that, and as your board is aware, you allocated funding for that in the Zog Fire, using some Zog Fire funds to make that happen. And it was a very timely project. I wouldn't say it's an emergency project, but it certainly is very timely, as that equipment was way past its service life as well. Also, jail ADA, we are finishing some projects over there at the jail that the board allocated about $6.3 million towards construction and towards retrofits and to make it a more modern facility. And I'm excited to bring the new Public Safety Detention Center back to the board here in a few months, where we'll be able to have a conversation with the public and hopefully some extra meetings on that topic, where we can really work to engage the community on what they're looking for in a new facility. We've already had a few meetings in-house to try and understand, certain portions of it, whether it's the financial portion, the operational portion, or how we're going to engage the community in that. But I can assure you that we will be engaging the community to make sure that they're telling us what they want in that kind of facility, and that the board will certainly be telling us what they want in that facility. So as we close the year from 2021 and move on to 22, I'm excited about that new facility, some of these other construction projects coming in and online in 2022. And with that ends my report.
Supervisor Ball, you have a question?
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to thank you, Mr. Pontes, for the recap. I think it's very important. A lot of things get passed over because of all of the challenges we faced in the last 18 months to 2 years. And besides all the challenges we have, there have been a great many positive moves forward. And I think we're kind of all hanging on to those with the hopes that we can continue in that direction. I will note, just for the communities you're listening in on the report, that almost everything that was shared did respond to the many speakers who said, when is this coming, when is this coming? And I think you covered every single one of them in that recap. So it's important. We are aware as a board, because you've told us in multiple prior meetings that all of those things are coming forward. The chairman will make sure they get it on the calendar. And I look forward to all those discussions, especially the public safety discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pontes, with the public safety campus, detention facility, et cetera, do you anticipate some kind of facility similar to, someone mentioned the Life Center or Navigation Center, or something that involves rehabilitation programming for people who are offenders?
Chairman Moty, I don't think we can build or even discuss a facility that doesn't include that. Absolutely. It would be my goal, and I'm sure the sheriff will be talking about it in front of the board just a ton of times in the future. But it'll be our goal to build and construct a facility, design, build, and construct a facility that really does deal with some of our mental illness problems in the community and really get folks back on track that need some extra help. It will also have a vocational side of it where we can probably align, get some extra skill sets out there and work on that. And also have that incarceration portion of it that is more efficient than our current facility, that is more modern, and that we hope actually makes a big dent in our problems here in Shasta County.
Well, certainly, I think we've learned over the years that we've got to have that piece to really make a difference for all the reasons you just mentioned. And I know it's something that's probably pretty near and dear to the sheriff's heart. He was pretty emphatic about it before, and I'm sure he still considers it as something that's of importance to him, I hope, and will be part of that process.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions for the CEO? Seeing none, Supervisor Jones.
Thank you, Chair Moty. So I took part of a fundraiser, Unite the Fight. These are healthcare workers that are obviously very concerned with vaccinations and masks, and so that was a fun event. I met with representatives from CSA 6, that's Jones Valley, through the redistricting process that just finished up last month. That area is now in District 4, which is my district. They're going to have a meeting tomorrow night, so that'll be my first opportunity to meet with them. They have some ongoing issues, and I look forward to talking with them and to doing a site visit as well. Also talked to representatives on Backbone Ridge, that also now is in my area. They've had some long-standing problems on that ridge, and so I'll be doing a site visit on the ridge as well. Talked to representatives from CSA 2 and Lakehead. That has been in my district, and they clearly have had some issues with a water line with a heavy loss that now has been addressed, and hopefully next year that will move to construction and finish up. And that's my reports. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Baugh.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Just want to mention in the same aspect that Supervisor Jones is moving forward with some of the redistricting changes. My first in a series of meetings happens on Thursday with Happy Valley residents as I get to know those that you have already been working with for the past whatever number of years it's been now. But I look forward to getting acquainted. I know many of them, obviously, personally, but I wasn't their supervisor, now I am. So we'll move forward in that relationship. I would like to make a special request of you, Chairman Moty, and I understand it's your prerogative to divide the speaking time, and it appears that you've already chosen that. My preference would be that we don't, but assuming you're going to move ahead and you made that decision, I'd like you to consider these things, that because you've limited it to 45 minutes, that the board not take up any of that time by arguing or taking away their comment time. I didn't have my clock on, but I didn't think it was 45 minutes either. I thought it was short of 45, but I did think that about 10 of those 45 minutes were taken up in the responses that came from this board, and I don't think that that's fair. So just a consideration. I would like to address the thought of efficiency. I mentioned it a couple times and didn't get any take on that. But if we could simply make it more efficient by announcing the name and then the next person in line so that we can move people through it more easily. And I'd also like to make the request that staff be placed on the afternoon portion, not come in for the morning comment period. We had staff take up the first time slot, and then that took that away from the community. So if we're going to limit that time frame to 45 minutes, let's do it in what would be a more equitable way. Thank you. That's the conclusion of my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Baugh. I will take those into consideration. I will say to your issue about the time limit, I said it was a running clock of 45 minutes. We lost 5 minutes when one of the speakers would not step away from the podium, and we took a 5-minute recess. When people are going to interrupt the meeting, that happens. That's going to be part of their time. So I was started at just after about 9:40, and we finished the public speaking at 10:27 or 8. So I did keep track of that, and that is.
And I don't disagree. You're speaking correctly.
Yeah. So just so you know that my issue is if people are going to interrupt us and not follow the rules that we have for speaking, then they're hurting themselves, and I would ask them not to do that. As far as the part about trying to get other speakers lined up, I will certainly take that in consideration as the way to do. Actually, when I was watching the time limits and the speaker cards, we were going to make all the speakers until that happened with the interruptions by a couple of the speakers.
But as we know, there is generally another 2 or 3 that come up that didn't put cards in, so we don't know that. But
I understand that. Anyway, I will certainly take that in consideration.
Well, just in response to the last part that you added in there, the thought of not allowing other people to speak because one person was out of line doesn't seem fair either.
Well, it may not seem fair, but that person has a responsibility to their fellow citizens to be mindful and respectful of the process. And they could have stepped away, and they chose not to. So I understand your point, but they also have to be mindful that they're actually interfering with the process.
Enough said.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Rickert?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I did attend the Garden of Lights, and it had received national attention. I guess we've been in lots of magazines and that kind of thing. So I want to congratulate Shasta County and the City of Reading and all those involved, Turtle Bay, all those involved to bring that to the city of Reading and Shasta County. So it kind of put us on the map in a positive way, and I felt that was really encouraging. I just want to share with everyone, and I will be attending it. I'll actually be introducing it at the Cattlemen's meeting on Saturday in Palisadro on Silver Lode Raid. We're going to have the Ag Pass training from 9 to 11 a.m. It's for producers to apply to get their Ag Pass. So I think that's really important that we get the word out and that they have the opportunity to go through that training. So if there is a fire or an emergency, that they will have that pass and be able to, if they need to get in and take care of livestock for whatever reason, that they'll have that training behind them. I do want to, we often memorialize people that have passed. My husband and I had a good friend who died recently, and in MacArthur, and he was a great guy. And he, interestingly enough, he was a Secret Service man, and his detail was to protect Ronald Reagan. So there was other Secret Servicemen. They're getting up, talking, and sharing some anecdotal stories about it. But it was kind of an honor to have someone that lived in the Fall River Valley that protected Ronald Reagan. And then I do want to make mention, as I go up and down 299 regularly, that I wanted to make mention of the Conservation Corps that they were burning slash piles yesterday in the snow and working hard, and that is so important to fuel reduction projects and to the safety of wildfire safety of people in Shasta County. And those are the kind of people that go, they're kind of out there and they're doing their job, but they kind of go unnoticed and unappreciated. And I just wanted to say that. And I know, Mr. Burnturn, you can appreciate what they do. So I just wanted to bring that to all of our attention, because that's an important part of keeping Shasta County safe. And I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year. And let's go forward and make a lot of progress in achieving the goals that Mr. Pontus just described.
Supervisor Clemente.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to follow the theme that CEO Pontus opened up with. Obviously, there's a lot of animosity that comes towards this board, and I'm not going to discuss that. But I'm going to ask. This is my ask: if we could move from the absolute divisive narratives that we engage in on a regular basis here to some real conversation that focuses on points of commonality. Because we may have differing political views, but oftentimes there are points of commonality that come to play that are very important to me. Sadly, my observation in Shasta County, both the left and the right have become radicalized. And if you don't believe everything they say, and I'm talking about the right and the left in extreme, if you don't believe everything they say, then you're the enemy. There's no room or opportunity for conversation. It's a black and white absolute world, and I have, in 67 years, have never lived in that world. And I don't want us to live in it. To me, the opportunity is initiating a conversation about the real problems we face every day. Enter the correctional facility and the rehabilitative center. And these not only address criminal behavior, but the destruction of the human spirit from addiction. In my opinion, anecdotally, so many of the problems we face right now are addiction-driven. Whether they're people with mental health conditions who are self-medicating or because of their drug abuse have now developed mental health issues, we have a real problem. These are not problems that Sacramento handles. These are not problems that Washington, D.C. handles. These are problems that we handle. And I'm very excited about what we can do with the rehabilitation center, correction facility, whatever name we want to give it. But it has to include medication-assisted treatment. It has to include job training. Whether you philosophically agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. The data shows that works. And that's what we need to do. Now let's tie homeless mitigation and affordable housing in Shasta County into this narrative. And to me, it crosses the political aisle. And that's what I want us to do. It's time. You can have your opinions. They can be strong opinions. God bless America. But at some point in time, we have to look at what we have in common, what we need to get done, and we've got to go do it. The city of Reading just approved micro shelters, which is going to be very controversial, I'm sure. But it's the beginning of a plan on how to address the homeless situation. And I am very much in support of it, and my ask of this board is going to be that the county take an active role in actually developing the next level of housing. So if we can use the micro shelter, use that facility to do some of the navigation, finding out where these people are, what services they need, how do we help them, give them a stable environment, and then those that succeed in the program, move them into more permanent housing, I think that's a win for everyone. And I've asked this before, and I'm going to ask it again. This is something that the county and the cities are going to have to work together on, because it's all of our problems. Homelessness, mental health, addiction, they don't know county lines. They don't know city lines. If they're in our community, they're an issue we need to address. So that, to me, that's where I want our focus to be. Again, we can have arguments. We can do all that stuff. I grew up in an Italian family. We always have arguments. I'm fine with that. But at the end of the day, we've got to do the work that we were elected to do, and we've got to do the work that this community desperately needs. And that's my ask. My ask of everybody that's listening to this, to put maybe some of your personal agenda items aside and think about what the common good is and how we can work together to achieve that common good. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'll just report that I attended the CSAC Finance Corporation meeting. We discussed many of the programs and services that we provide to counties and to the constituents in those counties. We also had a meeting of the Enterprise Anderson Groundwater Sustainability Authority. There is a plan coming forward here in January for final approval. The meeting was scheduled for January 10th, but I've been notified that it's going to be changed, and they haven't picked a new date yet, but I'm sure it will be sometime in January. Also had a meeting of the County Medical Services Provider Program, and again, those are programs that are used by counties to assist their lower income indigent populations for healthcare issues. I know our department, HHSA, is very familiar with that and very involved. Also, I became aware of that due to a change by the federal government regarding our ordinance on floodplains and stuff, that we have to rework that. That's caused some real problems for the insurance companies here locally, and that people in Shasta County may not be able to renew their insurance until we get our changes made. We're working on that. I've actually asked CEO Pontus to see if he can't push that forward quickly, and then apparently it will be coming forward on our January 18th meeting, which will be a huge help to people who need the flood insurance, and also it affects their federal loans. And then finally, I just want to make a point to thank Joe again for your service as the chair. It was, as we said, a long and difficult year, but you did it well. And I also want to just add on to the comments you just made. I totally agree with you that it's time to move forward on the projects and programs that can help our community. You've just named a couple of them already. I think that's a perfect example of some good use that could be made from ARPA money in those arenas, because obviously we don't have that kind of funding in our own pockets, and certainly $34 million could go a long ways to developing some of the things that you suggested, but more importantly, I think, working together as a group and with the cities as well. So thank you for those comments. With that, I think we have one regular agenda item, but I'm not sure. I'm going to look to Stephanie or Bryce. Are we going to run out of time? Do we need to reset our system?
Chair Moty, we have until 1 p.m. at the very latest before our system has the potential of crashing.
Okay, so let's see. Mr. Pontus, yeah, but Mr. Pontus, do you know if this item will be less than 40 minutes?
Mr. Chair, it should be. Mr. Director Minturn will be brief.
Okay, so let's try to do that and get to that. So item R4 is to approve and authorize the Public Works Director to sign a notion to completion on our Shasta County Energy Program. Mr. Minturn.
And Mr. Chairman, are there any other people that have asked to speak during your second open comment period?
Yes, we still have about...
when will that be?
Right after this item, if we have time. We'll do as many as we can.
Members of the board, Pat Minturn, Public Works Director. I assure you my presentation will be well under 40 minutes. Let's see now. I do not have. Having some trouble with my. Excuse me a moment here.
You're using up part of that 40 minutes.
I do not have a mouse here.
I think the mouse is on the other screen.
Okay, so I want to do it.
You have kids that know how to just push stuff.
Screenshot. There you go. And this is a final report on the energy retrofit project that CEO Pontus had mentioned. I'm pleased to announce that it is complete. This was brought to us through a partnership with ENGIE, a design build to install solar panels, but it was broader than that. It also looked at all the facilities, including the lights in this room, I believe. LED lighting is a big, quick money maker to upgrade the LED lighting. Also, we replaced the package units on this roof, air conditioning and heating, and we replaced the roof and many other facilities all over the county. So let me go through end of slideshow. Okay. A moment, please. And again. So, quick note, quick advertisement for ENGIE, a massive corporation, works in the U.S. and also in Europe, billions of dollars in completed projects. They're an energy services company, integrated, not just solar panels, but did a complete audit of our county energy use to see where we can make more money or save money or upgrade facilities economically. And this is what they came up with. This was the scope of work. So you'll see all these facilities. The county jail was an excellent prospect because the lights are on in there 24/7, large facility, a somewhat limited application for solar panels because there's not much roof area, but a lot of LED lighting. So each of these facilities we looked at, and we saw that overall we're spending about $1.5 million a year on electricity and a lesser amount on gas, $179,000. So that's an opportunity there. If over 20 years we can defray those costs through a project and it pays for itself in 20 years, that's a good investment. And the state law allows us to do these design build projects. So we went through and we looked. Solar was a big aspect. The price of solar has come down. This board did a similar project in 2001, but back then solar wasn't that competitive. Now it's a big element, particularly in PG&E area where the costs are higher. This administration center got 770 kilowatts of solar panels. You see them out there on the parking garage. And they're up on the roof. And it's because we have a lot of lighting and a lot of electrical appliances here. We have to match the energy production and the energy savings to each facility. So we can't generate in Bernie and use the electricity down here. So it has to be behind the meter. That was the one caveat. So here is the administration center, and you're familiar with the solar panels up on top. The lighting, you see in the lower right-hand corner how much work it was to get those lights there done, and yet it's worth it. The light payback is like a year and a half. And then for the next 20 years, the LED bulbs don't burn out, so we save the expense of having to replace the bulbs. We have all new equipment, and the energy consumption is a fraction of what it used to be. So there's a very quick payback there. This is the district attorney's office. Again, solar panels. This is down in Cascade. You'll notice this is a ground mount solar. That's a real cash cow. It generates more electricity because the slope is better. It faces right towards the sun, and it's cheap to construct. You don't have this big kite that catches the wind so much. So whenever possible, we tried to do the ground mount. This is a spot down there on the riverfront. Beautiful piece of land, not very good access. The sheriff uses it for dog training. And it's just about an ideal application for solar panels. We have many county buildings down there in Breslauer, and this really isn't developable for anything else. It's an interim use. In 40 years, if we find a better use for the riverfront property, these will have run their course, but it will generate a lot of money in the interim. And this is Placer Office Building. Here I just showed one of the HVAC units. They're 20 years old. They're going to wear out anyway. I was going to be coming to this board and to the departments for the cost to replace these units if we didn't do it now. So better to do it up front, get the energy savings, more efficient units, and not have to pay for it at the time. Pay for it up front, get a new unit, more efficient. And this is down at the courtyard. Again, a lot of lighting. This is up at the Fall River courtyard. We have a lot of land in Fall River, and in PG&E, the costs are higher for the electricity. So it has a very strong payback there. The Fall River Mills Airport, I didn't realize it. We're going to save $10,000 a year on electricity at the Fall River Mills Airport. I didn't know we were using that much. And Palisadro, the sewer plant and the pump station. So the money. It's all about the money. This has to pay for itself. So here was the plan. And you'll see there's about $10 million in total savings over the 30 years. Most of the facilities have a 20-year life planned, probably going to be a lot more than that. The LED bulbs will go beyond that, but that's our plan. The solar panels have a 30-year life. That's even allowing for some degradation. So we wound up paying $14 million to NG and $200,000 in staff administrative costs. With some interest, we took out a loan at 2.7%. Over 20 years, we'll pay $21 million total. We will defray $31 million in total costs, including some capital units that we would have otherwise had to replace. For instance, the package units on this building were giving us a lot of trouble, and the roof was starting to leak. So those were costs I would have been coming to you for very shortly otherwise. So with all that taken into account, we're going to save $10 million over 30 years and have the new units. So the original schedule, this board executed the contract with NG in December of 2019, right before COVID hit. So we locked in the price. It was NG's problem to find all these materials. The structural steel on the parking garage delayed that a little bit, so our completion date's a little delayed. Our payments were delayed as well. So we were very fortunate in locking in the prices in December. NG had already purchased the solar panels, fortunately. And the project is now done. Before the board today is a proposed notice of completion. And we're running on solar panels today. And we're burning LED bulbs today. And we're enjoying the heat and air conditioning of the package units today. So from a staff perspective, it's been very successful. There were no change orders, no additional costs. It's all pretty much as advertised. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them at this time.
Supervisor Baugh.
Yeah, thank you. I was having the same problem getting back to the
I think that Bryce is too quick on our speaker.
He's zipping you out. Thank you, Mr. Minturn. Great presentation. Just one question regarding the savings. Is that based on a static cost for electricity, or was it based upon increases?
There are projected increases in the electricity costs. I can't remember the exact multipliers. I think it was 3% in the city and 5% in the PG&E territory. Relatively conservative.
That's conservative. We all know.
I can assure you they will track.
So possibly the savings will be greater than that. That's the minimum projected savings.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, same question I had. Supervisor Rickert.
Yes, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank you. There's good news about the Fall River Airport. I'll be able to report that in my column, that there's a cost savings there. And I just think this is a really positive step forward for Shasta County. I think, I know personally we've done a lot of solar installations ourselves. It's not easy, but it's something that we're going to benefit from for the years to come. And I think this is just a great project. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe it'll help with that hangar rental cost a little bit. Anybody else? Well, I just want to add my compliments to you and your staff for this project. Saving $10 million is huge, and thanks for doing that. And as you mentioned, you're also updating a lot of equipment, which means it will last a lot longer and be savings there as well. With that, we'll look for a motion for the approval.
I would like to make a motion and make a real quick comment. I am a big fan of solar as opposed to some other energy alternatives, so thank you for getting this done, and I make a motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Minturn. So we do have a little bit of time before we go to our closed session. We have, at least at this point, 4 speakers. So I'm going to ask Mr. Gallagher, returning again to public comment, Mr. Gallagher, followed by Mr. Burnett.
Chair Moty, Supervisors, thanks for having me. Joe, well done. Nicely done. The County of Shasta is a general law county, and the County Board of Supervisors operates as both the legislative and executive authority of the county, as well as having quasi-judicial authorities per Government Code Section 25000. And that 25303, the Board of Supervisors shall supervise the official conduct of all county officers and officers of all districts and other subdivisions of the county, and particularly insofar as the functions and duties of such county officers and officers of all districts and subdivisions of the county relate to assessing, collecting, safekeeping, management, which would be my main point, and or disbursement of public funds. The management of public funds surrounding the topic of informed consent on vaccines is what I'm bringing before you today. Simply the statement on the county produced with public funds community relations daily update that the vaccine is safe and effective, implying for all, without listing the now known negative adverse reactions and deaths, is, in my humble opinion, morally and ethically wrong. As well as unlawful, but let's be clear on this subject. We are way beyond right versus wrong. We are in a global battle of good versus evil. My ask of the board today is to listen to Dr. Robert Malone on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I know you get asked to do a lot of stuff, so I realize where I'm coming at you from. But it's 3 hours. I did it yesterday, so I'm not asking you to do something I haven't done. It's 3 hours long. It's the most thorough discussion on this whole topic of COVID and vaccines that you'll probably be able to find. And interestingly enough, as I went to YouTube, it had been dropped, which is what's happening to most people who are speaking on topics that might cause vaccine hesitancy. That's the new buzzword for people who are getting censored. At the very minimum, demand that all information, including but not limited to the now studied benefit and effectiveness of natural immunity without a shot, as well as the well-documented statistics on adverse reactions and deaths from the vaccine, be published by the county so as to achieve actual informed consent, as we've seen many vaccine opportunities around the county, and I just want to, I brought, the first time I spoke to you a long time ago, and I'll hurry, is Dr. Malone and Dr. McCullough from Texas are two incredibly qualified people we should be listening to.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Jim Burnett, followed by Thomas Hildebrand. I don't see Mr. Burnett, so Mr. Hildebrand. followed by Nick Gardner, if he's still here.
Thomas Hildebrand. I really don't know what I was going to say. So many things have happening this morning, and same with this switcheroo appeared real fast. I wasn't expecting that. But on the radio this morning, I heard that some of our local water little companies are donating money to certain political aspects. And that's on the radio, so if that's untrue, someone should have some type of legal right, I feel. But I'd hate to see some of the money that we've given to these local little water companies be spent for political aspects of winning an election or against a recall or anything like that. I think that's bad. And
I'm not aware of that, Tom, but
yeah, I heard it on the radio, and I felt that that's if it's untrue, it's low blow. But I've also heard other information sent to me from the other side that's erroneous from my point of view. And but again, I think everybody's heart's in the right place. But I don't know how many of you guys have been in a country where there's no weapons and the government controls. There's no individual rights, and I've gradually sat here and watched individual rights being eroded, and it's sad. I mean, this republic is a democracy republic, but it's, what, 2,000 years old or so, and it's an experiment. And why be like the rest of the world? Why let an individual be controlled by a group of people that has no interest or after their own aspect of it? But again, I just don't want to see individual rights eroded by a group of people or whatever. And again, I come for help, and I do my part. Nothing's happened, and it's been in the years. So I don't know, what do I do? People are being paid, and we've got a lot of departments and then people in charge and this and that, but nothing's happened on my end of the road. So my individual right to go out there and stand up for myself. And again, I know there's a lot of money being spent on mental health. I don't know how much it is up there, but that's a lot. I don't see adding to it. Maybe look at where it goes. Thanks. Oh, I got 30 seconds. Yeah, well, there should be one here, but maybe we don't have enough money. Got to hire some more people to get this thing to work, and or give them a raise. Maybe that might be it. But we'll spend money on it, even though it doesn't work. That's just a common philosophy of the average guy thinking about government workers. And again, they've created themselves. When I have a business, people knock on my doors. How you doing? Here, they'll turn around and walk the other way.
Thank you, Thomas. And Thomas, if there is some water company that's a public, I'm just saying, if there is one that's a public agency, they shouldn't be giving money to a campaign. Yeah, okay, just wanted to know that. So I don't think Nick Gardner is still here. So then, Lori, Richard.
Lori, District 4, Shasta County citizen journalist, and we're about to do podcast number 13, where our main focus is fraud and corruption. Strictly that. So we have a lot going on. We're getting lots of tips on our hotline, and I want to capture some of the multitude of issues and topics before I go into my prepared commentary for my 3 minutes. I'm going to share an observation from today. As soon as you took the chair position, your mask came off, Leonard. I'm not sure what suddenly happens from a couple feet away to sitting in that chair, but your mask has been off the entire time. I'm not making a judgment. Like I said, I'm making an observation that's rather interesting. What could that be about? Joe, I'll respond to you. I agree completely about we're not having conversations. We can't have conversations because we're stuck here at a podium with the clock. That's not a conversation. What we get is crosstalk and interruptions. Okay, so that gets difficult. And we've asked many, many times, I know I have, to have a debate, a forum, a Q&A, a town hall, or some other reasonable option so we can have that engagement. We haven't had it. What the county's now proposing is ask the expert. It's supposed to be some film footage done later in this month, and then they want to have people send in their questions so they can cherry pick them. What will fit and match the narrative of the CDC or Fauci or what other agenda might be there. So again, this is not helpful to stage something later on where we don't have interaction. Very annoying, very frustrated. We're having premeditated murder, just like Mr. Mike was mentioning this whole thing with Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone. We've been mentioning these people for the longest time. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dale Bigtree, Dr. Tenpenny, Karen Kingston, former Pfizer. I could go on and on and on and on, but I'm on the clock. So the last time we had a 6 p.m. night meeting was middle of August of 2020. That's when Carlos Zapata was here. Memorable night. They have a new term now because they're making crap up all the time. Flurona. Flu and corona. Because we're what? We're missing the flu from the last year. Interesting how they just redevelop and create this unending mess. Regarding the solar, good luck banking on having sunny days to capture all that energy because of the dimming film came out. The geoengineers are fast at it. Gray skies. Even the Biden administration says, looking forward to a dark winter. What if we don't see the sun for a long, long time? What do you think the solar panels are going to be worth? Nothing. So, why do we have a new position in our county called a community organizer? He started in February, paid $3,556 to hand out food at these vaccination clinics.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, I would like to have Karen.
Thank you.
Terminated.
Thank you.
And Donnell, terminated.
Thank
Robin,
you.
terminated.
That's all the speaker requests I have during public comment. Seeing no one else, I will close the public comment. Just to answer your question briefly, Ms. Bridgeford, the reason I took my mask off is because I know that Joe tried to do it during his term, and it was very difficult for people to hear him. So out of courtesy to the audience, I took my mask off to speak during this time. We are now done with our regular portion of our meeting. We will move into closed session. It's a conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. The case is Robert Pryor versus County of Shasta. Estimated to be 15 minutes. Upon conclusion of the closed session, any reportable action will be reported in open session. We are recessed.